mode too, and he wants to join the Greyhawk community a bit now when he's done Greyhawk work.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the springboard to it, right?
Yeah.
I found it was difficult to sleep. That was the thing last night. I was having trouble. So I don't know if it was, just.
If you've been up 24 hours and been doing that, it takes a couple of days to get back in and track again.
Now I always forget what button am I gonna do here. I'm gonna do these a little out of order today. So.
Back in 2001, when we first began working with Gary Gygax, he pitched this wonderful series of books to us.
You didn't show. That was funny. When I watched your show, I still didn't hear what Stephen Chenault was talking about because you didn't run that ad.
You heard? No. I ran the long ones too. So Jeremy has 2 back to back.
Yeah, but it's so funny. I mean, I watched like 6, 8, 10, 12 hours of that, and I still didn't see or listen to Stephen Chenault saying this, so I still don't know what he's talking about. It's funny. I've seen this one so many times that I haven't heard
Welcome,
it.
Dragger. Yeah, it is funny.
Go to print. Another 3 or 4 after that we were working on. So the series was really open-ended. We are bringing these back. That's what this Kickstarter is.
Just gonna fill up my water bottle.
No problem. I got coffee and I got a water bottle and I got a remainder of my seltzer. Yeah.
Those will be out definitely in PDF, depending on how well the Kickstarter does, and maybe even more than that. Once we kind of push beyond the
Mike should be on between 6:50 and
6:55
our time.
Gary Gygax World Building Archives.
So
and please give us your support. Share it around if you can. Pledge if you can. Whatever you need to do, whatever you can do for us and the memory of Gary Gygax, we very much appreciate it.
Trollord Games, join the fray.
So back again.
All right, now let's see if I remember which number I did this one on. There we go.
Yep.
This is the new printing goes ever on one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess sounds just a little high. There we go. I don't know about that, Lomas. I'm not sure. I'm not a fan, but I can't tell them what to do, right? To retread, Planescape retreading old Greyhawk adventures. It's a little weird, especially if it's like they're doing a Giant series or they're doing, it's just, but it's not unexpected. If that makes sense. Yeah. Well, hopefully it's smart for us, and I always get in trouble when I open my mouth too much, but I opened my mouth like at 4 o'clock in the morning the one time or whatever, but
that was funny.
Yeah, I know, you and Les like, Jay.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, but at this point it's
we have to get Luke on at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
When he's been up for 18 hours straight, then we could get some cool answers.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I'm putting in the wrong thing in here, but that's all right. All right. I don't know what to do now. This one, I'm just going to randomly run one of these, and then as soon as the mic is on, I'm going to
gigantic cliffs.
go off this.
We have a lot to go over, so let's get to it.
You're going to get it too.
Before
Just
we
put you at
jump
the
in
top.
and see
That
how
puts you at
this
the
thing
top.
is standing up, let's look at some of our smaller features.
There we go.
Yep.
Are you running Temple? That's cool.
Some of these figures out.
Are you running it in
All right.
run it in its original spot? That's
folder in there.
I'd love to know. Definitely, good to see you.
Magnet face cliffs.
Long shot.
Those refer to a few specialty
and long shot are
items
both
that
the
we
exact.
have here.
Both
You can
46
see this
months.
tree right here.
I'm 55
Actually
months.
just
Yeah.
pop it right off. And after you pop it off, you
great.
can go ahead. I have a door piece you can swap in there. I also just have a plain cliff face you can swap right. You can pop in there. Okay. So let's say you're on an adventure and someone says a magic word.
Cool.
Maybe
I
door
never
appear
do things
inside of the
exactly
cliff
like when I
for
ran
you to
Temple.
enter inside or whatever.
I did like
So,
6 or 7
this one
sub
right next to it
adventures
is another
outside of
swappable one. We
Hamlet. You
a
have
cave
to.
entrance.
You know.
These
I'm
things
good,
blend
Greg.
in
I'm
really
good.
well.
Last night was rough.
tabletop, as you
We can
can
talk about
see.
that for a sec. If
Oh,
we're
yeah,
waiting
we need to.
yeah,
Yeah.
I had cramps like really
New
bad.
cave.
And I thought I had
Uh-oh.
I thought I had plenty of magnesium in my system. I guess, but maybe I was
Just
so much
simple.
crap I was eating
Okay.
just to stay awake.
And
I was
then,
just eating
our
whatever
last
was
one
there.
is down here.
Tim has a Tim who stayed at my
Shelves
house.
right
Greg
here. This whole thing comes
has
off.
I guess an addiction to DoorDash.
Okay, and there's your magnet
So,
faces on the back.
It's
You're
like
also
every
gonna
4
have
hours.
Open locks everywhere. You have
Well,
magnets.
first
Most of the time
morning
you
after
get
Anna, when you hopped on, we got
magnets.
through
We're
that
using
night. He's like, "What's open?" I'm like,
by 8
"I
millimeter
don't know
magnets
what's
on
open."
this.
And my wife had to get to work early,
I needed
so we're
something
like,
with a little more punch than
there's
the
a
2x6s
McDonald's down the
I
street. We can go
usually
get it. He's like,
use.
"Nah, I'll just DoorDash it. What do you
Can
want?"
see the
I'm like,
open locks being useful in
So-
some cases. Mostly, I
Hey,
think
good to
you'll
see
want to
you.
use them on
Good
side-to-side
evening from the Brazil.
connections,
Good evening from
potentially,
the outside
because
Philly.
We'll get into situations.
Yes, he
Yeah,
is. Tim is ex.
where
Yes,
the
Yep.
he's but he's
Both Tim and me are
correctly
ex-military.
for what you
Yep.
wanna do. And those open locks will
But I'm not US military.
override.
So, yeah.
it's all
the
good.
magnets pushing away from each
Dragon
other.
Air, if you
In terms
so
of this
choose,
base here, you can
hit that
use any
heart button.
quarter-inch
Follow us. We got a
material.
lot. We are
Using
Greyhawk
Hardboard here.
pure. I have an entire
Use quarter-inch
Gabbin
cardboard,
on
quarter-inch
Hamlet and
foam
Temple
core,
Elemental
some
Evil,
kind
by
of
the way. An
plastic,
entire one we did a while back. It's
plexiglass,
still on
anything
YouTube.
like
All my
available.
vids from here,
You could even
they
use
stay on Twitch for
eighth-inch
90
material
days,
and shim it up
but
a
they go to
little bit.
YouTube. So
Double
and
it
it's
up, whatever.
it's on my Hall of Fame.
So
In fact,
that's
it's my
the
favorite adventure of all
hardboard I'm
time.
using.
So we did
Okay.
Hall of Fame
And these
highlights
sit right
of
on
all
top.
of. They're on my wall. There's 24 adventures on my wall.
I'll
I
go
know we
ahead
did
and
Hamlet and
move
Temple.
these out of the
I
way so you
plan
can sort
to
of see
go
the
back
front
to the Temple
mechanism.
and Hamlet one day. That I haven't
Okay,
got
so we
there
got
yet, but
magnets
in
all
like
along
the next
here.
5 years or so,
And these are just the
then I'll,
tops of the
I'll
cliffs.
definitely.
Your board
I
sets
think I will
right in
make
here, and you
that
do not
part
need
of
to
my
cut
Elven
precisely.
campaign.
We got a
Cool.
lot of overlap
that'd be cool.
coverage there.
So what I'm
As you
thinking,
can see, in
if I
most
go back
cases,
and
most
do
spots
another
you're looking at
historical,
up to an inch of
Ooh.
coverage.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna.
if you're
I mean,
You can
if you're
follow
within
up
half an inch,
Emery
that's
or
gonna-
the Emery Meadows Temple and.
well, that's what I was
yeah.
thinking of doing
Yeah.
because we
have
played.
magnets,
That's where we
these
started our
things just
campaign
pop
when we were
right in
kids.
there.
Yeah.
We started.
Go
We
back,
didn't start
go back.
576. We started
Yeah,
569.
Yeah,
this
go
one
back
here is
there
an earlier
and
one. You can see I went a little
redo it from
deeper. I
another
decided
angle with or
to
something.
change that.
Or, yeah, and make that a
for the one
series.
I'm releasing you, so you don't
That's
have
awesome.
so
2.5
much
years is
3D print
fantastic,
coverage
man.
Going back. It
I
doesn't
think
really
us it
interfere
took, and we
if you're
hop
just
around
doing
because
a
we got so
cliff
many adventuring
face.
groups.
But if you
But I think
form these
ours
things into an
from
entire butte,
the temple
that extra
to
rock really
the
ended
end
up taking
of
up a lot of surface space. So
from
I
Hamlet
trimmed
to
that
the end
back
of
a little
Temple with a
bit.
couple of add-on
So there you
adventures
go.
after
That's
that.
how, those
I think it took us a year.
top plates hold into place.
Yeah, but
There are
that's
a few
cool.
features
That is
that I'm not
fantastic.
showing today
Love it.
that will be available in your kit.
So I can respect
each
that
one of these
long campaigns.
cliffs
Here comes Mike
will
Schley.
have
So I'm
a
going to go to the
half
entrance
version, So it's
screen.
going to come out to about
Hey, Mike.
Hey,
Hello?
can you hear me all right?
Oh
Yep.
yes, we can hear you.
You can't see me because I got the starting
Good
on.
to see you. Yeah,
Yeah.
we will see Jay in the Twitch window. Yeah.
Sound
so
good?
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
it's an honor to have you.
Invite.
No, it's an honor to have you here.
Honor's ours. I mean, we're excited about this.
Yeah.
Especially Anna. I mean, come on, man.
Oh,
I
yes.
mean, you know,
Yes, this is, wow. Yeah.
I got to say, your map was an absolutely wonderful resource when I was working on the.
I'm so glad to hear it. That is useful for everybody, from Greyhawk gamers to the people that actually do official Greyhawk content. That's fantastic. I love it.
All deserved, Anna.
Yeah,
really, you know.
Absolutely.
She's Anna is so fantastic. I mean, Mike, I am spoiled. Let's just say that. So like Anna's map, you know, her map, she custom edits it for my campaign.
Oh yeah, I have a custom. Jay has a custom version of the map that he had, but the thing is that things from his custom will spill over to the general one, because once he run things and people get acquainted with that content in the Greyhawk community, they want to see it on my map, and that was one of the things we can tie back to that later, because I have questions on the other project, meaning how do you get stuff on my map, and how do you put stuff on the map, what should be on the map. That's one of the
coming live in 30 seconds, everyone.
We can discuss later on. So we are live audio wise already, so they can hear me.
Our shtick is we talk over the ads.
So
that's our little shtick here. So give me 1 second here. I'm just making sure I got out the last second shout outs to the communities that always ask for them. So and then we are going to go hit it live here. Let me hit that. Let me hit here. We are good. All right, we're good. Perfect timing. People are still rolling in.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, Jay just recovering from a 24-hour stream. He will
Straight.
talk about that a little bit.
First ever. So good evening, everyone. Yes, I made it. I'm alive. All right. So you all saw me like pass out at like 7:30 last night, and Tim crashed quicker than I did. Just put that up there. So
okay,
it was,
good. Yep.
Yeah, it was a long evening, but I made it and prepped for this as much as I could. I know Anna's done a lot more work than me.
Yep.
We want to welcome a very special guest, Mike Schley. Mike, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. I've looked forward to it all month.
That's fantastic, and we're super excited. I'm going to ask this first question. You were a Philly guy for a while, weren't you? Were you?
So my wife and I moved to Philly. We moved to Philadelphia in 2013.
Okay.
Originally, well, we've lived all over the U.S., but before that, we were in Arizona, where we moved for her to pursue an undergraduate in sculpture.
Oh, cool.
We moved to Philadelphia for her to pursue her master's in fine arts. And after she had graduated, I had the opportunity to go back for my MFA as well. So that kept us in Philadelphia for a while. And then after I graduated, about a year later, COVID hit. And that's just, sort of established us in Philadelphia for about 11 years. And most recently, I guess about 2.5 months ago, we moved from Philly to Omaha, to the sort of geographic center of the of the continental U.S. So far, though, I grew up in the Mid-Atlantic in Virginia. Moved down to Florida to be with her. She agreed to marry me when I got a job offer at Paizo Publishing in Seattle. So we sold everything and drove out to Seattle and lived out there for a while, then moved back to the East Coast for a bit, and then to Arizona, then to Philadelphia. So we've hit all four corners pretty much.
Wow.
Or close enough, and then decided to go right into the middle of the country. So we've been, I do like exploring, and apparently it's just the way things have worked out.
That's good for a map maker to like to
absolutely
explore, so
a variety of like direct experience. Well, direct experience with a variety of landscapes, I think, is incredibly helpful. Mm-hmm. Most all of my sketching for the Epic Atlas, I do just going for walks and natural, like wildlife reserves or forests and woods, wherever I happen to be.
That we share that hobby. I take my camera equipment and go hiking. That's my favorite hobby of all. So yeah.
Somebody asked me the other day, what do I do when I'm not making maps? And I told them I go for walks in the woods, and eventually that gets translated into a map at some point, I think.
Yep.
So
fantastic. Yeah, because I saw one of the pictures I saw was you in a thunderstorm wherever you were.
Oh yeah. One of the, being in Omaha, or being in the Midwest, I'd never been through tornadoes or tornado sirens, or like the skyscape here in this part of the country is absolutely phenomenal. And I've lived in a lot of different places, but the drama above the horizon here is unlike anything I've ever experienced before. The first week we were in town, it was just tornado sirens for hours, because there were multiple tornadoes passing by the city.
Wow.
Luckily, everything was okay. But a week after that event, we had a couple of new neighbors move in whose house had been flattened like the week before.
Wow.
And it gives you a real sort of wake-up call that, it's not just these things aren't just on the news. It's not just something that happens out there. It's a real, we are real physical beings living in an environment that, is awe-inspiring.
Yep.
So I know everyone's chomping at the bit. Well, let's get for the Greyhawk part. Well, let's go back to the beginning and just see how Mike got into this, right? Because I love to always hear the stories, because I'm assuming when you first were you like as a kid, like I was, into D&D and into games, you're like, man, I'd love to make maps professionally, or how'd they come about?
So I mean, I remember playing the Red Box like back in the early 80s. Update myself. I'm 50, so I wasn't part of the original, like right out of the gate. But I'm about as old as Dungeons and Dragons. So when I was a kid, I used to love, every month National Geographic would put an insert map into their new magazines, and we had a subscription. So my first memory of maps was laying on the floor and just exploring these big, beautiful fold-out maps, and eventually putting them on the walls and having a room that was filled with maps of places that I could only imagine. And so beyond that, I started drawing maps with my friends to make new boards for our Risk games. And then when we started playing D&D, it was, an obvious, wonderful transition. And I recall collecting the old Forgotten Realms gazetteers back in the 80s or 90s, late 80s, I guess. And I went to school for arts. Gaming sort of took a sidetrack because I was working and chasing girls and being a guy and out in the world for a bit. And then I had to get a job because I was running out of money for school. I was studying art on my own dime, and happened to get hired. Well, I'd taken a couple of side jobs. My first job in the arts actually was working as a medical illustrator's assistant. So I was drawing diagrams for courtroom cases and medical procedures.
Oh, wow.
And that. And that's, my attention to detail has always been a pretty big focus of my work. But anyways, we also ended up painting Greek Orthodox iconography because he was Orthodox, and I'd lost that job because he got a Fulbright scholarship and went off to Greece and studied icon painting in a monastery in Thessaloniki. But that's another long story. It was a great experience though, and it led directly to me applying for a job when I was ready to quit school because I was out of money. to decipher games, and I ended up getting the job and making collectible card games for Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, TCG and Star Trek, and that was my entry into game making. But I wasn't making maps at the time, although we were getting some Lord of the Rings maps in-house that were commissioned, and I can't remember the artist's name to save my life, but I absolutely fell in love with him. But I didn't have an opportunity to make maps at the time, so later on, a couple of years later in 2004, when Sean Glenn and I started talking about me coming to Seattle to work as a designer for Dungeon Magazine, I flew out, drove out and wound up making my first maps for D&D professionally when I'd been bumped up to art director for Dungeon, and I was always looking for new artists to work with, and there were very few map makers at the time. So guys like Lazzaretti and Chris West were my go-tos because they were available, and I could rely on them frequently to pick up projects for me. And the nice thing about working as an art director was I started to understand what my artists could provide that would make my job easier. So as an artist, knowing that and understanding how a map actually works in the context of a story was invaluable. So I wound up doing a project 1 month because I couldn't find anybody else to do it for me. I just drew I think it was, it had something to do with IUs, and I think it was, it was an adventure in Dungeon Magazine, and I'm blanking on was it Throne of IUs?
Throne of the Serpent?
Yeah. But that was, gosh, that was
SV Forest.
2000. Yeah. That was almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And then Rob Lazzaretti sent me a project 1 month, but because I think Weapons of Legacy, their artist dropped out halfway through, and they only had a month to get it out, and there was like 50 maps in it. And I was dumb enough to say, sure. And I hopped on it and just got it out as fast as I possibly could. And looking back on it, I sort of cringe when I look at my drawing at the time. But we had to get it done and out fast. And so it's not my favorite one, but it's the one that was probably the hardest work and the most exciting, because I recall at one point I'd put in close to 30 hours straight just drawing to try and get this thing done. And after that marathon, they just kept giving me projects, and I kept accepting them. And my wife was like, look, you got to pick one or the other. And I was like, I'd much rather make art than assign art. So that was it. That was almost 20 years ago, and I've been working ever since.
Yeah, that's a curse of role-playing games when you work in the business, meaning the what you get for good work is more work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's
absolutely. And since then I've done a lot of work for other like book publishers like HarperCollins, Scholastic Books, Little Brown and Company, Hatchet Book Group. Currently, I do a lot of work for Pro Fantasy Games. They're a campaign cartographer 3+.
Oh, okay, cool.
Very popular, those symbols and all the settings. So you can use their products to recreate style maps in your style, so to speak. That's super cool.
And every month I release a new set of bonus artwork.
Yeah, that's really cool. And to me, it's interesting because you and me, we've approached cartography from opposite ends, meaning you come from the fine art and have an art education and all of that. I have none of that. I come from real maps, navigation, cartography, meaning I understand how real maps and cartography and stuff is done in the real world, and have a lot of navigational training and all that. And then love gaming, and then slowly going in and try to make them more artsy. but still suiting it. And in 40 years time, I'll be half as artistic as you, but it's so cool to see that we're coming from opposite ends and we're still getting to love to do cartography, so to speak.
I think that's absolutely fascinating. I've spoken with actual GIS cartographers, and I come from an artistic background, but like the three things that I try and focus on, obviously, is the aesthetic look and feel of the work. If it can inspire the DM and the players to sort of engross themselves in this world and enjoy it, that's one part. The other part is it has to be designed well enough so that it's easily readable, at least in my focus. And then the third part is that it's got to have the information that they need to be able to effectively play the game, and it has to work as a map. And if it can hit all three of those things, then
it's like one of these Venn diagrams. You can't get two, maybe, and then one
no, you can get all three of those.
It always suffers.
I'm
you get
trying to do that.
And you have the mishmash in the middle that no one likes, so to speak. I struggle with exactly the same kind of field there, so to speak. It's those are gravity fields, and you have to go in between. And when you do commissions, meaning that was one of the things that I wrote that I criticized the Greyhawk map. The only thing I criticized was the fonts, but I also wrote that I've done projects that's one of the things. When you do a commission project, then publication issue becomes issues that comes with publication. People that can't read have difficulty reading. You have color vision issues, printing issues, and all of that. And so the big fonts is always, that has been, I think we spent a month on Southland's map for us to figure out the fonts. That took at least a month to get it right, because
the thing about D&D, and because they require a certain font set to be used just for liability and copyright usage rights issues. So that's the one thing that I like. That's the visual thing that I don't have control over, in that they assign the fonts. And I wish, I wish that I had more say in that. But it's a commission, so
it's part of it. When you work on a commission, you have to. I had to make sure that I got open source fonts that had the licensing and all that too. So and we also brought in only 2 fonts, so I had to nail down to 2 fonts, and that was it, so to speak. And so it's a lot of work. So I totally get it. That is, I think a lot of people that don't do this don't realize that could be such an issue, and it's one of the really big pitfalls. I
think that one of the things that folks don't realize are the legalities around publishing. And until you're actually part of that world, it can seem very sort of amorphous or not quite real. But I would assure you, it is very real. At least the lawyers, believe it.
So that's the beauty of doing a fan creation project. You don't have to worry about half of those issues. You can just release it, and as long as you give it away, you're good, so to speak. Right. So it's kind of, but I need to emphasize to everyone watch that, because I went online. I didn't realize you had such a big, wonderful fine art background too, and it's amazing. All the cool stuff that you've done, so to speak, and trail maps and stuff that was fantastic. So there so many other stuff that I love too. So I realized that we have way more in common than I thought, so to speak.
I've been busy.
That's really, really cool, so to speak. But also I need to ask you, meaning you have so much awesome architecture. I barely moved in, meaning my domain and realm that I worked in mostly have been big setting maps, and then I slowly now moved into doing city maps. I've done a couple of city maps for my own use, and one that I lashed onto, so to speak, that I did for Cobalt Press. But mostly I've done done big maps, but you have done so much awesome architecture. And I remember the first thing when I noticed your work was the Hawk, or how you pronounce it, map you did for Greyhawk. That I think was absolutely fantastic. How do you get all these kind of wonderful? Do you wander all the streets of European cities for months, or how do you do it? Yeah,
I do spend a lot of time just looking. So my artistic training was as an observational artist. So I've spent, like, outside of maps, I spend a lot of time drawing from observation. And the thing about that is that you're taught from the get-go. Like, for instance, if you watch me, sitting out in the field with a sketchbook, my drawing is far more effective and informed when I'm spending more time looking than actually looking at what's in front of me rather than looking down at the page. And the result of that is that the amount of time that I'm looking at something, I'm analyzing how light falls on a surface, how tree structures are, how tree branches separate off one another, how buildings are held. Like, I lived in Old City, Philadelphia, and it's one of the oldest neighborhoods in the US. And one of the things that I noticed was, there were ghosts of old buildings that were still there, because when they would tear down one row house, the remains of the stairwell would still be sort of ghosted into the brickwork on the side of the building that was still there, right? So understanding, like, even though I didn't have diagrams of how those buildings were structured, you could get a sense of how people used space just by what was left over. So noticing little details like that only happens when you actually look at something, and not when, like, my imagination doesn't have a whole lot of stuff to work from if I'm not looking and seeing how things actually work in the real world. So one of the reasons that I go for walks is that I feel like the best inspiration is right in front of you.
Yeah, that's good.
And a lot of, I spend a lot of time looking at old maps, but looking at old architectural drawings. I have folios of
I'm posting a link in chat to your portfolio site where you have an isometric and cutaway map of a castle that is. I've seen similar ones. That it's modeled on similar ones in Britain and France. The Norman keep, so to speak, a normal double-towered keep, so to speak. That is a cutaway. It's brilliantly done. So it's
and I'm not obviously I'm not an architect. But
you don't have in a fantasy world. You have different. It's just to get the
they're
sense
different parameters. Giving the viewer something that can inspire their imagination. That is what I really enjoy.
So it's really cool. And I bring a camera for the same reason when I go hiking, because that forces me to look at the landscape differently. That's my sketchbook, so to speak, in order to bring in. I do sketches occasionally too and bring down, but I want the camera both for documentation and also to kind of, I see the world through it, because that focuses me. I can kind of, I can stare at one thing and it forces me to go there when the light is beautiful and stuff like that.
The thing that really strikes me about going out into the world is when you're surprised by something that you didn't expect. Those are the things that you remember, and those are the things that you can bring into the work.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
My thesis in grad school was specifically about that. I did a 400 square foot oil painting that was 16 5-foot by 5-foot panels, and I chose 5-foot by 5-foot panels for a reason. And
that sounds D&D-esque.
But with each of those panels, I put French pleats on all 4 sides, so you could rotate the panels and reposition them. And their orientation to one another, as it changes, there are new color and shape relationships that show up in the conversation between those panels as they sit side by side one another, or above and below. And the result is that you could make, well, I would have loved if visitors to the gallery could go and rotate those panels, but for insurance reasons,
Yeah.
the gallerist probably isn't going to allow that. But so instead, I made a box that had 25 blocks that operated in the same way, and you can see those on my website.
Yeah, let me go
I
back
was
on
going to
that.
say,
I got it.
The top left picture where you have a bunch of
Let me go
big
to
color fields. So there's a video you can see me rotating those.
Is that
oranges.
arc?
Yeah, there it is. Yep. So
I'm posting the link to that page here. There we go. Yep.
So if you scroll down, there's a box that has some wooden blocks that are colored in a similar way.
Yeah.
If you go back to the main page.
Oh, I think I did see them right next to it. Right here?
Yes. Yeah. So if you click on that, there's a video you can watch. And that's scenes from my opening reception. And there's me with the blocks. But if you click on that, the thing about these blocks, and there are 25 of them, with each change, there are new color and shape relationships that show up. So you could turn and play with those blocks every second for 1,000 years and never see the same thing twice.
Wow.
Yeah, because you got 6 times 25 times.
So now we realize
exponential almost. Yeah, that's really cool.
So now you need to do Dungeon geomorphs and geomorphs that
unlimited.
Does this. Yeah, that does this for like wilderness. You need to have like different terrain type biomes and stuff using this method because it's brilliant because that way they fit together and you can kind of definitely. You need like city geomorphs, so you can fill in build a city or something. So or build anything.
I have a feeling, Mike, that you're going to have to do some of that maybe with Ed with the Fate of the Norns because that is. Huge.
Yeah. So you found out, You just
we had a wonderful person asking a question in chat here, saying that how it is to work with Ed and on the Fate or the Norn stuff. So,
because I imagine a lot of it's going to
We just went. I think Andrew just announced that today, and I have been secretly working on building out the city behind the snes. And I've worked on projects with Ed's for years, and I met Andrew at a convention in Philadelphia, of all places.
He's awesome. Yeah, both of them are. Yeah,
and we hit it off, and I thought that the aesthetic and the ideas and just the thought of building out 10th century Dublin in a way that could be explored and played, and I was hooked. So
and work with Ed with anything it's fantastic, and
absolutely
and all the work he's putting into the project. He's still some of the stories he's working on for Ascleath is fantastic. So
and if you saw Friday night, he was playing a bard in my game in a 24-hour stream. And he starts singing these songs. I'm like, you got it written down? He's like, nah, I just made it up. I'm like, really?
He is fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Really great guy.
It's so cool. So so that's awesome. So what do you prefer, so to speak? Dungeon city maps, dungeon maps, bigger area maps, or do you like to go from one to the other? And
I like to bounce from one to the other. Honestly, it keeps me engaged. Like whether it's a top-down village map or whether it's a bird's eye view full city map or a world map or even just an encounter map. Like I spent way too much time building a marshland for the Epic Atlas that I spent the time on it because I loved exploring the environment while I was drawing it. And
We need to get into the Epic Atlas, and I want to have half an hour for you to explain because that's really cool because that's your pet passion project. But first, I need to ask you one question about city design. How difficult and how do you go about getting the streets right and to do a fantasy city? Do you copy real world design, or how do you go about?
I look at a lot of real world design. Honestly, I look at a lot of satellite photos of old small European villages and towns. One of the interesting things is to think about how cities grow over time. And being in the US, the US had different structures of growth in the like East Coast cities. Most of the old city areas were developed in the 16th, 17th centuries. So their technology at the time developed, or their street layouts developed in direct relationship to the tools that they had to move from
meaning
place
don't
to place.
look at LA. Meaning Eastern US is pre-cars.
Right.
Or horse and wagon and foot.
Cobblestone, man. Oh my gosh.
Or even just if you're looking at a regional map, the position of cities, like distance-wise from one another. There's a reason that missions in the Southwest of America are about a day's travel on horseback, one to the other, because you wanted a safe place to stay at the end of the day's worth of travel. So that physical positioning of cities that later developed into larger towns was based on how far a horse could walk in a day. Whereas other cities are developed on, resource locations or geographical borders and safety concerns. In Philadelphia, which I lived down the street from the oldest still inhabited neighborhood street. I think it is the oldest still inhabited neighborhood street in the U.S. It's called Elfrith's Alley, and one of the interesting things is to look at house listings on Zillow for houses that are literally 300 years old or 400 years. I think there was a house that went up for sale in Elfrith's Alley that was built in the 1718, or I think it was built in 1718. And to see the size of the fireplace and the weird room structure and things that would not make sense in a house today, but absolutely made sense, back then. That to me is fascinating.
1.2 million probably now.
When I was in Philadelphia, I lived in a apartment building that was built in mid 1830s. And one of the first things, it was a beautiful building, 14 foot ceilings. It was about 2,500 square feet. We turned half of it into an art studio and the other half we lived in. But some of the floors were original to the building when it was first built. And you could see age and time in those floors in a way that you just can't anywhere else. There were scars from old fires, and like some of the wood beams had like 1/4-inch gaps between them, and who knows what had been lost between those floorboards over the last 200 years. So thinking about those sorts of things when I'm drawing a map from quote unquote my imagination, that I can't tell you.
I totally agree. I mean, before I moved here, I lived in a house that was built in 1620s. It was an old stable in Sweden outside of Stockholm. It was built in the 1620s, and the floors were so tall, so they actually put in there was two and a half floors in what used to be one big room, so to speak. So they put in the big beam. They switched out the windows, of course, from old. It was like almost church windows back in the early days. So they made new windows that looked old from the outside, and then there was like a floor in the middle. So there was like a double height there. But it was so that was the king's old stables. that I used to live in. So there, and I remember growing up, I had friends who had a big manor house outside the town where I grew up in Western Sweden, where there were bullet holes from the 16th and 1700s when they were fighting the Norwegians and the Danes. And there was a stone outside, just 2 miles away from where I lived, a big stone saying in 1027, I think it was the big battle of Lena when the Swedes beat the Danes and stuff. So there were like things like that made me kind of, I want to invent cool for games. And I found out on an archaeology video on YouTube a few weeks ago, they had the Swedish archaeology channel, that outside my kitchen window where I grew up in an apartment I lived before I moved away from my hometown, there was actually a big stone. And I thought that was something that someone put there in the park like 100 years ago or something. No, that was put there in the Iron Age, early Iron Age.
It was a literal standing stone from the Iron Age.
Exactly, it was one of these standing stones. And I've been looking up that for like 3 years. I saw that every day, and I didn't realize that. I thought it was a little monument they put there 100 years ago, but they was actually standing there for over the 2,000 years.
Mike,
and it was
that is amazing.
Found all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
So Mike, if you ever are interested in watching any of the old shows we had, Anna did a wonderful one on castle history and architecture.
Well, yeah, we
and how it relates to D&D.
We had a design. I was in the military for a lot of years, so we looked into old and more modern, how it evolved from medieval castles to modern and so on, and so it's some of these, and I just want to tell everybody else that these are the kind of the cool inspirations you need if you want to kind of stay creative for the long term, so to speak. You need to kind of take inspiration both from in-game but also from other sources, and then kind of merge them into your gaming passion is my advice for being a successful creator, so to speak. You merge passions and borrow from other passions into what you do, so to speak.
The one of the most recent Pro Fantasy monthly sets was a series of Viking settlement illustrations. And I spent a ton of time researching earthen and beam built castle structures.
You need to go to, there's a couple of places in Sweden, they actually built in City Block in a Swedish city now, they built a full-size replica of a Viking settlement. They built in a park, cool. They built a couple of 100 yards of what the Viking-esque city wall actually looked like. It's amazing.
That's cool.
It's so cool. And they had it at a live archaeology project, and it's now I can see how difficult it would be to storm those walls. So
I can imagine if you're standing right in front of them.
So and now there's like a walk path through the old city gate, so to speak. It's now a path where you can walk and take your bike through. So it's amazing. So there's cool inspirations like that. And
we have a old church in my old neighborhood called Old Swedes, and it was part of the first Swedish settlements in Pennsylvania in the Delaware.
1623.
Yeah, you live up there.
So I live literally the next town over is Swedesboro.
Yeah.
So Mike, I own a map from the Dutch cartographer de Kuiper from 1680. It's the oldest thing I'll ever own of the New World. And Philadelphia is not there. That's 1681. Sveaborg is there, and that dot in South Jersey, which is Swedesboro. So I know all the history about 1623 to 1635.
Yeah, I think they had it for like 40 years or something.
Christiana, Fort Christina, all that. Tinicum, it's all New Sweden.
It's Swedish,
really love that history.
Super successful colony attempt. The Dutch took it over.
The Dutch in 1641, and then the English came and took them out. It's
Swedes
pretty
were
neat.
everywhere and collapsed. They took 300 years to recover.
Absolutely. So, so I see you do, like, for example, have some castle layouts here. Let me go to them. Why not? Right here.
Yeah.
Let's take a look. Check this out. Dwarven Stronghold. That's pretty cool looking. So let me go.
Oh yeah. So a lot of that is honestly thinking about how human beings have used geography as a defensive, as an element of defense, and a lot of what I've got a lot of photography books of different aerial, just aerial photography. I mean, they're not cartography books. They're not architectural books. They're just looking at the world from hot air balloons or whatever the technique was. And so, and a lot of times that stuff just isn't available. So I'll look at ground level photography, and then in my mind's eye try and rotate structures and imagine what they must, what the details that I can't see are. And using the landscape, or how closely people used to live with the landscape as opposed to just flattening the landscape out and building, whatever it is you want to build on top of it. That to me is really, really wonderful, and it can really inform the world of your game or your setting or your book in ways that that are worth thinking about, that are worth exploring.
Yeah. And I think it's so cool if you think about fantasy, you can kind of, meaning in this day and age, we can do terraforming on a massive scale and stuff that you couldn't do in medieval times. But in a fantasy world, you can still have like a medieval-esque mindset, but with a little bit of magic and so on. So you can make construction that are a little bit grander. You can make bigger tunnels. You can dig through mountains better and stuff. So that way you can have the mindset of someone who lives in a technological world that has roughly the same technology as medieval, but with slightly better possibilities and stuff. And
one of the things that I was just thinking about recently, and you just reminded me of, was that so in Europe and I know in South America, and I think in Europe, during just before the last ice age, there were all these giant ground sloths, and there have been tunnels, like massive tunnels, that have been carved out by these giant ground sloths that are big enough for large habitations to exist in. Like small villages could live inside of these tunnels. And there was I think I was watching a nature documentary on on them recently, and you're looking up the sides of the walls, and there's gigantic claw marks that have literally clawed out this burrow. And like, you don't even have to have magic. That in and
think
of
about
itself
what Umber Hulks could do in the fantasy world.
Rockworms.
Exactly.
Umber Hulks, some digging monsters, fantasy monsters. Yeah.
So how a settlement could incorporate that, like, let's say you have some migrants that were recently burned out of their own village, and they knew that these tunnels existed, but had to sort of hunker down. Well, if it was well located and defensible, and they just decided to stay there, then I mean, you could have an entire city that kind of develops out and around these infernal caverns.
Yeah, you can also think what Underdark races, what kind of animals they might, or monsters they might domesticate and feed and live alongside, that will dig tunnels for them, so to speak. So you can have kind of cool symbiotic relationship. What about someone race realize that, oh, we feed and help Umber Hulks, and they will dig our tunnels for us, or something, some other kind of symbiosis like that, so to speak. It's there's a lot of cool fantasy stuff. But now I want to dig in a little bit to the meat of the topic here, the Greyhawk map and stuff. So
one question though before, is that okay?
Oh yeah.
Because I think this will pertain to a little bit of the style difference between Mike and you. And Troy asked it. The tools and equipment you utilize to create your maps. Could we go into that a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
then we'll do hit and great.
I grew up with pencil and paper and painting with brushes, but now, well, at least since 2000, I've been working with a Wacom tablet in Photoshop, because drawing on the surface is very natural to me, and that it's a lot of small motor skills and a lot of like arm control, and it gives me quite a bit of naturalistic feel. Like I've customized so many brushes at this point.
Oh wow!
But you work in digital first, so to speak. You don't do paper and pen. You work straight to digital.
I sketch. I do a lot of sketching.
Yeah.
But like a lot of times it's just a rough, like my sketching is more inspirational and typically not directly applied to the map, unless I'm doing a quick sketch in my notebook to lay out the
test
general
out ideas
orientation.
and stuff, and then
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like for the map though, because I use the way that I draw my maps is very similar to the way that a digital artist would draw for comic books, in that, you know, I'm using my line work to block out my colors, and I'm thinking about, like, the map of Greyhawk. I had to have 2 separate art files, one for my layered artwork, because I tend to have like 100 layers going on at a time, and another separate file just for my live text. And both files were about, the reason that I had to have 2 was because my machine couldn't handle the file just in a single file, because I was saving large format Photoshop files that were 15 to 20 gigs a piece. So typically, a lot of times I'll have a very simple sketch or a very simple reference from my AD and the editorial team, and I'll just dive straight into the inks, and I literally just noodle away at the inks until the entire piece is finished, and you know, laying out the text and labels as I go, and then I'll turn those over, and typically they'll say, "These are great, no changes," and then I'll get to work directly on the colors and turn over those. And then, you know, typically there are edits at that stage, because the story's still being written most of the time when I'm doing the map.
That's another thing that people need to understand, that
absolutely
that a lot of misunderstandings come from that part.
I mean, honestly, a lot of times the in-house team at WotC has made changes to my maps after I've turned them over, because the story has been rewritten, or details have changed, or names have changed, and I have no problem with that. I really enjoy knowing what's changed, so that I don't sound like an idiot down the road and misname something.
I had a policy with Cobalt Press say that don't move any mountains or lakes or rivers after this point, so to speak.
Right. The art stays the same, but the text changes because the story changes.
Yeah.
But luckily, like, they haven't edited the artwork, and you know, I have not. Luckily, I have not had an art director that's done that. Yeah, I mean, I usually keep things well documented and layered in my Photoshop files, so that I can make edits really quickly. And a lot of times they'll come back to me a couple of months after I've turned over a project and said, "Please, can you make a quick edit for us?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure," and I'll get it back to them. And
so you have line art on one layer, and then coloring.
Oh, not on one. I have a folder with many layers.
Yep.
Because I keep my line arts. So
you have like underlying terrain, and then you have little details, and then buildings and stuff. Yeah.
I'll have all my foliage on one layer, and mountains on another layer,
so you can
on another layer.
Remove and add trees to whatever. Yeah.
This way, if I keep my coastline on a single layer, I can use that to trap and create an alpha mask that allows me to, you know, play with colors really quickly.
Yep.
Same thing. You know, in the thing that you can't really do that with as easily are bird's eye view, or very loose sort of isometric drawings, just because they're much more naturalistic in a way that you just got to draw. You just got to draw and paint, and if you make changes, they're typically more global after the fact. the I think some like the Hoko map, I didn't have nearly as many layers unless, like you were talking about, the border treatment and the little call out map, that sort of thing. You know, I keep in a lot of separate layers. But when it's me just noodling away, like the city, I had a general footprint of the city, tilted it, and then freehanded the whole thing.
Wow.
And that was just me thinking about that landscape and how people inhabited it. And like, you know, when I'm throwing in small boats that are pulled up on the bank of the river, I'm just thinking about where they're traveling and why they're going to leave their boats there as opposed to anywhere else. I spend a lot of time thinking about how people use a landscape and live in the landscape.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was so much fun until I started working on my Shieldlands stuff for my campaign and started doing city design and stuff. All people wanted to say, I got crazy a couple of months. I love a little building here. Someone lives there and they need a little trail to go here. And it was fantastic to just dive into that. So I realized I could do this for forever. So it's kind of, it's so
my
lot
most
of fun.
difficult map, thinking about that, there's a city called Skullport. It's sort of a port underneath Waterdeep.
Yeah, I had that up.
And I have a isometric view of Skullport that's done in 3 separate layers. That is, you know, carved out of the bedrock there. But I had to take 3 separate footprints of the 3 separate layers of Skullport, tilt them in a way that made sense, and then freehand draw the entire city in a way that looked and felt naturalistic.
Yeah.
And my brain felt like it was bleeding the time I was done with that thing.
But
it turned out great.
Yeah, I'm thinking now how to map other planes, meaning I want to map the hell, the abyss and stuff like that. How the heck do you go about that? That's things that I'm struggling with right now. I have ideas to how to tackle it. So I need to start doing tests soon. So
here's Menzo Barons, and this couldn't be easy. I mean, that's
no, but it's fabulous. Yeah.
That I had a full poster to play with. And the inks turned out so well with that I think they printed a sepia tone of just the inks on a parchment background on the back side of that poster.
Oh wow!
But I've done caving before, and I've never explored a city that was built into a cave. I mean, there are, like, was it Derinkuyu that was built into? I think there are some locations in Turkey where people have been living. I was just going to say,
go in and explore these locations. And what I do when I come to places like that, like in the Balkans and Turkey and stuff, there are a lot of these caves and ancient dwellings underground. I take pictures of the signs they have at these places because they've had often a century or more of trying to figure out how to explain it to tourists. And they come up with some ingenious designs on how to create maps of weird places. So you can Google some of, now there's probably available online, a lot of it, so to speak. So tourist guides are a great inspiration if you want to get into this, because to lure tourists to these places is something that's very similar to getting players and DMs to like an area, so to speak.
I think that's actually a really wonderful observation, and that essentially, we're creating tourist guides for worlds, for fantastical worlds that folks are going to play in.
Absolutely.
So, and some of the greatest cutaway maps that I've seen were essentially either scientific illustrations or tourist tourist views. Have you ever done any caving?
I've been in caves, but I haven't mapped any caves yet. So I met one. I should say one for my campaign. And since I work in 3D, I can actually cut out part of the mountain, put it in the mountain, so to speak. I haven't displayed those maps. I haven't shown most of them yet because the players were still in the area, so I don't want to spoil it to them. But it's coming.
Gotcha.
So that's the only real mapping I've done. It's only one big project so far. So yeah.
One of the things that that I realized, so my wife and I went wild caving in West Virginia years ago. And one of the things that I realized, and by wild caving, it means that you've basically got a light on your helmet, and like there's no
diving
guide
in
rails.
some caves. That I've done more of that in caving in underwater than I've done on land, actually.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's a number of really interesting YouTube videos of folks that are honest to God cavers. But one of the things that struck me was that caves aren't flat. I mean,
no, exactly. They're really.
I mean, there is so much elevation change and variety of geography in those spaces that how to sort of incorporate that into what often is just a top-down map is a really interesting challenge that I've been thinking a lot about lately.
Yeah. Yes, most maps or caves are made from running water a lot out in the wild. That means that they are running downhill in one way or the other, or the other ones are the ones that are gouged out into mountains by erosion, so to speak. You can find a lot by coastal areas where it erodes in, and they are also hollowed out in all sorts of weird shapes too. So
I gotta get off the YouTube vids of all the cave guys, divers getting caught and dying in those caves, especially the ones where they go from water to water, from point to point, and they go
I haven't
my gosh,
that's deep.
I would never be a water diving in aquifers is probably the most dangerous thing you could ever do.
Well, we did. It was part of our training in military diving was to do some of that, and then we were in Norway in the fjords and stuff and did it. And there's some openings in there, not that deep, a few hundred meters, but there's still enough to get the kind of ooh and ah feeling of and if you want to experience vertigo, I have one good tip: is that go dive in Norwegian waters in the winter when it's pitch black, it's crystal clear, and the mountains, when you jump in the water, you're next to a granite wall that goes 3,000 feet up and 6,000 feet down, and then you have a big light and you turn on the light and you look down. I got vertigo. I was terrified. That was like staring into the abyss. That was the worst case. And I used to be a pilot, and I had vertigo. And I skydived, and this was the worst kind of vertigo I've ever experienced. That was.
I watched too many disaster vids on YouTube. And all the Mount Everest disaster things. I watched too much.
Disaster videos.
There was a point when I was about a mile and a half into a cave, and we had to go through an area called the birth canal.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah. So we had already done a belly crawl in a space that was probably about 1.5 feet tall, with maybe about 2 inches of water on the bottom, and it's freezing cold mountain ice water. So we get to the end of this line, and I've got 2 or 3 people behind me, and you can't turn around. They measure you before you go into into the birth canal. Like, they literally measure your torso. And in order to get through, like, you finally come to a tiny little opening. And you can't just like crawl through the opening. You've literally got to torque your shoulders in a certain way, grab onto a stalagmite, and birth yourself through this hole. And you can audibly hear the squelching as all the mud is being like just scraped off.
Oh my gosh, no.
Through this,
this
hole, and you've got to sort of suck in to make sure that you're going to make it. But you come out, and by the time you're done with a caving day like that, you're filthy, but you've got the biggest smile on your face that you've survived. At least if you enjoy it, you do.
What do we do for our gaming habits?
But the great thing about that is, everyone takes their personal experiences and little side stories, and they weave it into their whatever they're doing gaming wise. So that makes it so much more rich. Absolutely. So I'm sorry to cut you off on that Greyhawk one, and I know, but I know people want to know on the tools because.
Oh, well, yeah, that was great. I was going to.
Yeah. Okay.
I needed to ask that question too. So
yeah.
please, but
Wacom Intuos 4 tablet and Photoshop. Those are my main tools for drawing maps.
What size Wacom?
Cool.
Is it one of the larger Wacoms, or just...
it's
built-in
honestly,
screen, or
it's this.
That's the same size I have, I think.
Yeah,
there it
cool.
is.
Yeah,
All right,
I have
cool.
an identical here. So
Yeah,
I have a little
it's not
screen
huge.
too.
It doesn't take up a whole lot of real estate on my desk, but it does exactly what I need.
And Mike, if you want, like, you could have all of Anna's hand-me-downs. She's probably got 8 terabyte hard drive she ain't using now, right? Because Anna's always got to get the most cutting edge
I use
technology
3D
out
and
there.
I do 3D rendering, and that's
so it's like...
terribly resource intensive.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so that's the
that's crazy.
So half of it is like 3D and programming and stuff. The other half is doodling in Photoshop. I love the combination of the two. At least like photography, I love the knowing your equipment and cameras and stuff, and I also love the composure and lighting and stuff. So it's the intersection of technology and art, so to speak. And I come from the nerdy geeky side, but I kind of love to get into the artsy bit somewhat. And so on. So one more little thing. Have you delved into, because we had Darlene here previously, and one of her, I think where she really shines is calligraphy. Have you got into fonts and text or?
I haven't given myself the time, actually. I haven't. I find it absolutely beautiful. I really haven't done much of it though. Like, the closest I can imagine is the kind of mark making that I'm doing when I'm using charcoal stick. In that, it's a broad, flat surface, and a lot of it is very gestural. By the way, like, you would be astonished at the variety and size of my charcoal collection. It's just burnt wood, but there are so many different varieties and shapes.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
And actually, that's one of the things that I'm fascinated by recently was, so I work in a digital environment quite often, but I really love the fact that I can walk out of my door with a stick and a piece of paper and make something that I find to be worth the time.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I wish I had that artistic capability, but I do
and
not.
Whether you're working in a digital environment or on the side of a cave wall, I think, and it's not about skill level. It's about communicating something that you find worth saying to someone else.
Yeah.
And that could be sitting at a table and running a game, or that could be drawing a map. Like, one of the things I love about maps is that essentially I'm creating a landscape that I can give to someone and let go of and see what they do with it that I couldn't do myself, or that there's something terrifying and irreplaceably beautiful about being able to let go of something that you've created and see what happens. And it's the same thing that I try and approach observational drawing from, in the sense that I have to be quiet and let what's not me surprise me, because I can create whatever I create, and that's fine, and I can redo it, or I can, like, there's something, obviously the things that I control are the things that I make, but the things that I can't control, which are the things that you make, are what's irreplaceable. Like, I can't make that, right? So making something that I've put a lot of time and effort into becomes exquisitely wonderful when I see someone else taking that and finding a measure of joy in that. And that's why I created my thesis work in graduate school, but that's also how I that's immediate. Like that's fundamentally how I approach map making for games or for storytelling.
Yep. That's awesome because
Wonderful.
the way my Greyhawk maps, that's why I wanted, one of the main reasons to release them under Creative Commons is that I want to make sure other people understand it's a raw material. You can make your own version for your games. And that's why I give away the source material for it too. You can download the AI file and that I'm using and make your own version and release it. So for your game, so to speak. And it's because it's, for me, it's, the map is a living, breathing thing. It's a thing that changes every time I sit down and plan my games. I change something. I add a village or whatever, something. So a little that. So, but now we need to dig into. That's the wrong Greyhawk map.
Well, I just was gonna say we're going for manas, and then I'm gonna press.
Oh yeah, but that's the wrong one for that. Well, that's the
I know I have it here. There
Come
we
on,
go.
there you go. That's the right one.
The biggest sized file I could find resolution was about 7 meg out there.
Well, yeah, we will get the indulgence in the when the new Dungeon Masters guide comes out, right?
Yeah. So the when the DMG comes out, they'll have the full poster, and my working file is far larger than the physical print poster.
Now I'm kind of curious, how big? How big is the file? Gigabytes or terabytes?
Oh, meg. Well, if it's the layered file.
Yeah. We talking PSB.
Yeah. So I think my working, again, I had two separate layered files, one for text, one for art, and they were both around 15 gigabytes.
Go bigger than that. Yep.
Yeah. So, and well, I mean, I've saved like so many iterations.
Oh yeah.
15's pretty big. Still.
Every time I have a work session, every time I release something, I save a new name, and then I keep the old versions for on old hard drives. Yep.
Yeah, I think the thing that I kick myself in the butt the most is that I accidentally lost some layered versions of artwork and maps that I'd made back in 2007, 2008 or so. And for years I thought, man, like, how could I be such a bonehead? Because it was a bonehead thing to do. And then last year I discovered old CD-ROMs.
Oh, you backed them up on.
Oh, I found all just
about.
I can understand how you feel. I'm redoing a commission now that I have to spend 2 months just because I didn't back it up properly. That I did it 8 years ago. I didn't have the routines to back everything up properly. So I deleted it out and thought that I had a backup copy and that drive failed. So that way I had only one backup, and of course it failed. So now I'm doing it for Gamehole Con and Alex Camera. So now I have to redo it from scratch, twice as big and better, because I did it like 8 years ago. So I need to redo it. And he said, "Oh, can you find that one and change a couple of names?" And I said, "No, I lost it." So I had to. I'm saying I'm sit down, and so I don't even know if I get paid for it. I don't care. It's an honor thing. I screwed up. I need to redo it again. So So you can have to work 2 months just to repair an old shitty hard drive that you
So
take backups.
So I think the file that I have, if I don't resize it, if I were to just print it straight at 300 DPI, I think it would be I think it would come out to around 7 by 10 feet, which isn't that large, but so. Most recently, there was a show on off Broadway. It was a D&D plays set in a tavern, and it was in New York in Manhattan, and it went over really well. But a friend of mine sent me a photo. He had gone to see the play one night, and it was a D&D. It was a D&D production, and at the entryway into the play was my map of the northwest section of the Forgotten Realms, gigantic, covering an entire wall. And a friend of mine in the photo, you can see someone, even though it's blown up huge, like you have to get close to see all the detail. Well, that's the thing. Like, the best compliment I got was from an old art director of mine. It was like, yeah, we love getting Mike to work on maps for us because you can blow it up to the size of a freaking wall and still have to get in close to see all the details.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the way to do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And like, for instance, I've made lots of recent just quarter page maps for D&D adventures that Beetle and Grimm's has come to me and asked if I could turn into full poster maps at a 1-inch grid production scale. So because of the amount of detail that I put into these tiny little maps, they still translate when blown up to poster size for in-game use, which is nice. Even though I have to, there's some tricks that if you keep your inks clean, if you keep your ink line work clean and well separated, there are a number of tricks that you can use. So in Photoshop, with their algorithms, you can generally resize an image to about 150%, and there are other plugins that will allow you to resize things as well. But if you have a lot of detailed line work, you've still got an issue with sort of jagged edges and blown out sort of halos and things. And the way that I found to get around that is because I keep my inks and my color layers separate. If you resize those inks separately and run them through the selection tool, like if you select the inks and you smooth the selection, it'll clean up some of those jagged edges, and then you can just sort of repaint or refill, and then do a little bit of editing, and as a result, you can get something that's 300 times.
Or you can also bring them into Illustrator and vectorize them and upsize them, and then bring them back in and do a little bit of filter trickery.
Although I have had problems in the past with Illustrator not being able to compensate for the amount of line work that that I've used, it just kind of bogs down.
There's meaning you can't, when you generate pixels, it's going to look messy one way or the other sometimes. So now I need to ask, when you get assigned to do like a big, like a setting map that has been done before, what's the approach? Do you sit down, read all the books? Do you interview the people that have done it, study all the work, or what's the process there, so to speak?
If it depends on how much time I've got. Honestly.
Yeah.
If either way, no matter what, I ask my art directors for any resources that they have available. If the map if a map of the location already exists, I need to see that to see how other people have approached it in the past. A lot of times, if somebody else has worked on a map, I want to, like, for instance, the map of the Forgotten Realms and the map of Greyhawk. A lot of my color choices and aesthetic choices are both informed by what's come before and by not only what other people have done before, but what I've done in the world before. So I don't know if they used the border for the Greyhawk map or not, but the border design that I made for the new Flannis map was directly informed by the Hochhoch border treatment with the hawks in the corners. But that map was 10 years old, you know. So I try, and even if it's unique to my weird little mind that just like loves drawing, I try and make reference to what's come prior to the current version. And that might be, like, the previous version might be a version I made a decade ago, but it might be something that someone else made 20 years ago or 40 years ago.
I mean, the Darlene map is like 40 years old now.
Yeah.
So that's the map when it comes to Greyhawk is the default.
Yeah, that I spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time looking at that and thinking about, decisions that she made and knowing, being in print media prior to doing all the digital work. I know what goes in. Like, I remember walking into WotC's offices back in 2004. And Robert Lazzaretti had a physical map that he was drawing of the Forgotten Realms laid out on this gigantic table in the little dungeon of a cartography space that they had there. And he and I were just geeking out about like hand drawing maps in a way that reminded me of, sitting at my parents' kitchen table as a kid and hand drawing.
That's the
nostalgia. I mean, that's this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, that's why I'm still here after all these years.
Yeah.
All right. So, any question you can't answer, just say I can't until it's released.
But we totally understand that. Meaning,
I have to bring one thing up, and you're going to laugh.
Okay.
Maybe not, but I think you're going to laugh. We're looking through this map of Greyhawk, and Anna and I start laughing because we look at Lower Tarma. Tell the story, Anna, please, about Lower Tarma and Leonard Lakofka.
Yeah, we had Len Lakofka on like 40 times here, and he had a pet peeve about because Lower Tarma was on he
supposed
put
to be
it
here.
originally
right
on
here.
on the eastern side, but since that was outside the map, so what happened was that Gary and Darlene or so on, they just made a executive decision to just move it because they wanted it on the map. Len, we talked 40 years afterwards. He brought that up 15 times at least that they screwed up the island because they moved his city and they shouldn't have done
and then we saw it. I was like, oh man, we should have told them.
Yeah, we should have told them. You should have. Now was the time to move it back.
I was like, oh.
I have to admit that I can't. I'm not going to go into too much detail about this, but I have made an executive decision where. A certain town needed to be on the coast, so I moved
good. Ooh,
Anna can guess. I think we know which one it is right here.
Yeah.
We knew that. We knew Prim.
Yeah, but it was so awesome. I must say that you moved Prim, and the good thing was that I had thought about Prim wasn't a good location. I just put it there because the Living Greyhawk had it in that area. And when I saw it on your map, he's like, yes, that's awesome. That's where it should be. So I now it's awesome.
Again, people live in an environment, and if you're close to the coast, like why wouldn't you be right? Like that's trade, that's movement,
exactly.
That's food. That's
and it's the best. You have a little island that shields it. It's a little
it's a perfect spot.
Mm-hmm. And the island is just that came to be out of the fluke of fractals in my Bryce program in about 2001 or something like that when I did that. 2003. Yeah.
A lot of the existence of a lot of little islets and reefs and things in a lot of my maps are just, I spend a lot of time looking at coastlines and how wave action creates formations along the edge of a landmass. And there's a lot more little islands than we would think in the maps. So a lot of times I'll just I'll have little islands just because I damn well feel like it. And
that's one of the hard bits is when you have a map that is like a sketch or something, is that you have a first pitfall you fall into when you want to do it more detailed. You take these details and you just blow them up, but then you have to add more details, so to speak. And another typical example is forest, meaning on big fantasy maps, you have big green blobs of forest with a cute name on it. But once you zoom in, you realize it doesn't make sense that you have a forest half the size of France and there's no trees outside it, meaning once you zoom in, look at a satellite image, go to Google Earth and look at Europe from space, and it's all green. And once we zoom in, you start realizing that most of Germany isn't forest because it's the darker colors that prevail when you see it from space. But once you move in, you see the spaces between the trees, not the trees, so to speak. and that's but
Anna, you're
that's the
missing
big thing.
something though. I think Mike included your Isle of Dr. Moreau off the coast of the Wild Coast, or was that already there? This one right here, that little.
Oh, that's my little island, I think.
Yes,
that
you created for Carlos Lysing.
No, that's not the one.
No? Oh, that's not it. Oh, I thought it was
an even smaller one.
Oh, okay.
And it was so funny because Carlos he ran an adventure at GaryCon. And he invited me to play part of it. It was one of his Marquesa adventures, and he said that it was a little island. Yeah,
there we go.
Island. Yeah,
that one. Oh, it's that one. Oh, okay. It's not the one there. Oh, okay.
So he was like,
I thought it was
a tiny little island out there. No, wait. And I took my iPad and I started zooming. I had an iPad back then, and I zoomed in on the map that was on the Easy Zoom, and I said, I have an island right there. So then we made the executive decision then and there, and it got the name Morro Point from Carlos' adventure, so to speak. So it's a tiny little speck, and that's just happened to be there due to the algorithm.
Looks like there's a little change difference here. You never know.
It might be.
When we get down there to the nitty gritty, you never know.
The other island there, the little bigger island, is next to Kars. I think it's something that came up in my endeavors back in the day too. Yeah,
really cool.
So there's it's so cool that there's like the ideas you riff off each other, so to speak. In
I spent a lot of time just exploring your map.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm so glad that I could help to inspire a bit. So to speak. So,
absolutely. Absolutely.
I have to tell the background when I take 1 minute and take the background when I first got my big commission for Cobalt Press to do the Southlands map. And then what they sent me as a sketch to work from was Jonathan Roberts' map of the area. And that was the time when Game of Thrones were rising to the chart, so to speak, and he was hailed as the coolest fantasy map maker in the world at the time because he had made the official Game of Thrones map. And here someone is telling me that I should do a map of a place that the guy who did the map for the Game of Thrones, and I was supposed to somehow better that. I freaked out and I realized this is not for me, and that was like, that was hard. That's really hard.
I really I love that story because my interaction with John was when I moved to Philadelphia. I used to go up to New York and meet up with him, and
I never met him. We chatted on the phone over a couple of times. That's it.
I had a chance to enjoy a number of coffees and lunches with him.
Awesome.
We'd go to a bookshop down in Soho for readings, and he's a wonderful fellow. Being inspired by other artists, I think, is like, so when people ask me who I think about when I'm making my work, or like who my style is informed by, typically I say guys like Alphonse Mucha and Rackham, but when I'm thinking about D&D, oh gosh, like there were magazine covers from Dungeon and Dragon magazine that I remember distinctly growing up looking at, and there was the ability for the artist to tell a story that you would like get in an instant,
like Elmore, the healer, L1 from Elmore.
Right,
the giant walking away, and her.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. The one with the archer and the giant skeleton that's breaking up out of the snowbank.
Yeah.
Those
Aveline, the
were
healers.
So absolutely fantastic in their sheer storytelling capacity. That I mean, I make maps, but I would hope to be able to inspire that kind of imaginative wonder. With the work that I do.
Well, the audience is chomping at the bit here, so
Yep.
which is great. I mean, this is the place. So
Any questions in chat?
I got some running here. Just Mike, I think that we are the Greyhawk community. I mean, we have the bloggers, streamers, Discords where we got people like Gary Hooley and Eric Boyd,
machinery, so to speak.
Ed is writing content for us now. Ed Greenwood. It's so I'm really honored you would agree to come on here because I know they're going to have questions. There you go. We'll ask, and if he can't answer it, that's fine. So I'll start with that one. So because Asher the Bear Dale, his world is the North Province up near
He's
Spine
been
Castle.
Adventure running campaigns for years there.
He has what the Highlander castles are right here. They're all right here, defending this area. So he wants to know about why Erdiak.
Erdiak, yeah. If you can explain the term, we can guess what the term.
Yeah, it has something to do with the RD, but which is but
that I've got to defer to a lot of the naming to editorial in that. Okay, so just to kind of show you how a lot of the sausage is made.
Cool.
Whether you like it or not.
It's good.
For naming, there are things that I can sort of logically deduce that, as far as the choices that were made in-house in the editorial team. But there are a lot of text choices that I'm not privy to because they're in-house discussions. I'm in Omaha drawing, right? But the editors are hashing out the story or the explanation, or they're making changes to previous versions due to whatever reason, whether it's a copyright or a ownership reason, and naming something Arn.
I can tell you how it's been done in some project I've done. What happens is that you get a text file with the names, and then you get a little paint stuff with a red dot with a big 1, and then there's 1 in the text file, and that name goes there. That's all you know. You have
sometimes that is it. Sometimes I get the actual text of the adventure if it's available and if they can release it. But other times, it's just a text file with a list of names.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those names change down the line because the story's still being written or the world's still
you get a
being
new
built.
text file next week and you have to go for it again. That happens. Yep.
So, for instance, I wasn't even given the information as to what year specifically the map was set in, but there are logical deductions that you can make.
Horn Society.
The Horn Society, the Bandit Kingdoms, Shieldlands, they have not fallen to Ayuz yet in this map. So that gives you a very narrow.
We can understand what concept they're going for, so to speak, or what type of reboot or something they want to do.
Like all that stuff. I mean, that's as much of a mystery to me as it is to you, honestly. So we'll find out when the book comes out. And that's all I can say.
But it's kind of cool. I see you've done some cool stylistic homages to previous map. I mean, you have the lines, the gradual depthness in the oceans and stuff from Darlene, which I love that. It's great. And you kept the hexes. It's like Greyhawk maps need to. I had to cave in and do a hex version too from popular demand.
And there's still 30 miles, it looks like, too.
Fate of the Norns, every map that I'm making for them has a hex version, a square version, and an ungridded version. I like having that utilitarian sort of variety to use in whatever game you're doing.
All right, so here's a big one.
Yeah.
Castle Greyhawk has been moved.
Yes, that's an interesting one. Yep.
Yes.
So that was not my decision. Like the position of Castle Greyhawk, that is specific to
it's normally it's north of the city.
I had no decision making in the exact position of that.
Okay. Just was curious.
I did a can I tell you a funny story about?
Yeah, please. We're having such a great time just chatting here. It's just been awesome. Yeah, please go for it.
there has been, and somebody pointed this out to me a couple of times over the last few years. So online, there are Facebook and YouTube groups that are essentially like throwaway AI groups, but somehow the algorithm has identified my cutaway underground view of the ruins beneath Castle Greyhawk as a diagram of the real world, I think Derinkuyu in Turkey. And it's been showing up in all of these stupid posts saying, isn't this a fascinating location in Turkey where people have been
Oh my gosh.
And it's by freaking map from the Expedition of Ruins of Greyhawk.
Must be hard for those who never played D&D to figure out the difference.
Yeah, I guess, but it always like sort of gives me a chuckle that
that's so cool.
Is what we've come
I didn't realize you did those maps for Arcmona expeditions.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
wow.
you did a map of the city of Greyhawk that is awesome too.
All right, I got it right here. I believe it or not, I have it right here.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, cool.
So, but it's cool because we had Ellen Grohe on for probably about 6 months ago. So we had a whole episode. We talked about Castle Greyhawk, and it's interesting because the Castle Greyhawk have had several different positions. You had the original Gary's original idea that has never been a map published, but he wrote about it. That is actually east of the city originally in his ideas and stuff.
On the other side of the river.
Yeah, but that is something that was probably only publicly known after he left TSR and started babbling in forums and people started asking him about it. So that's why by TSR, and if they know, they probably put it somewhere else just to screw him over.
I have no idea about that deep lore. I mean.
So that was the original. And then you have the ones when they started publishing modules with name and location where they put it just north of the river, so to speak, in there. And now, and that's where I put it on my map because I followed the published modules. And then now we have it moved a little bit northwest or westerly, so to speak.
It's all right. I mean,
it's kind of interesting.
It is what it is. I just was curious.
And it's not a real place, meaning we can't say it's right or wrong because there is no real.
It is fiction. We have to realize.
Exactly. It's fiction. But and also it kind of makes sense to put it in a spot where you put it on map. That can make equal amount of sense, so to speak. So we'll see. And I want to do my version of the city eventually in some years. We'll see.
I would absolutely love to see that.
Yeah, so we'll see where, because now we have a more full story and we know everything from old stuff that Gary talked about and wrote to all the stuff that TSR and then later Wizard of the Coast, and now even a later edition now added in the DM's guide. So now there is a rich history of Greyhawk City material as well to dig into. So I think it's really cool. So
So we're assuming there's a lawsuit or something about Blackmore, who owns it, and that's why they put Orin in.
Yeah, that's what I would assume. I mean, I don't know if it's a lawsuit or if it's
at
just
least they would be polite about it.
Which is cool.
Yeah,
doesn't hurt anything.
And the name Arn is cool. So and it ties into Dave.
The vulnerable cut of Arn and all. Well, that's Arn too. So
that's, and I also like the fact that on this map, the indigenous names, so to speak.
How
do they refer to themselves as opposed to just sort of the generic?
Out of the 80 glossography book.
Yeah. On my maps, I covered both bases. I put both names on the map just to so people who just read the book for the first time can find it on the map, and people who know. And there's another name that you didn't, but it was the Bandit Kingdoms actually has a formal name too, and it's called they're called the Compact of. Hang on a second here, and it's kind of fun. They are called the Compact. No, sorry,
I don't remember that, Anna.
Yep, they are actually
White Plume Mountains there too.
Yeah, that's the 5. I have to have the 576 map. So if I can find it. So,
I don't remember.
So,
it's on Darlene's map.
No, it's not on the Darlene map. It's actually mentioned in Living Greyhawk Gazetteer.
Well, that's what Gary wrote that, and Gary's on. He can answer that question.
So they have
combination of the Free Lords.
Exactly.
That's it.
That's
it, Sam.
what they call themselves. But because you can probably think that a country will probably not call themselves the Bandit Kingdoms. They probably have a more pompous name.
No, yeah, but Anna.
So for the Living Greyhawk asset here, they actually had the combination of the Free Lords.
But
is
that's
their official name. So
that's Free Lords after IU's comes in. That's actually a future date.
I'm not so sure about that. We have to talk to Gary because he's the expert. I just read it. He's the one that wrote it, or part of the team.
That actually brings up a really good good topic.
Please.
So maps historically were created as a way for a nation or for a king to visualize their relationship to their neighbors as trade routes, or it was a way for them to identify resources outside of their direct control, the things that were outside of their nation. But now, if a map is essentially sort of taking a bird's eye view and not acting as a way for an individual to view the world, but as some sort of objective overview of the world, it becomes a different thing.
True.
It was like in the 1500s. That's when the maps became navigational tools.
Well,
before then they were
They weren't just navigational tools. I mean, obviously they were navigational tools, but they were state secrets in a lot of cases. And they were state secrets because you didn't want your neighbors to know what you knew. You know, whether that's the location of your own colony or whether it's the location of something that's very valuable to you, you know. You don't want your rivals to have your treasure map. So that there's a lot of times I'll think about players' maps in relation to the DM, which is essentially sort of outside the human realm and looking at something from hopefully
like an in-game map, meaning what map would the characters have?
Right,
if they
with
go
all
to the big city
you got all the secret doors and all the information that's not visible, and then you have the player map. And the reason that Fog of War is so important is that for you to be, I don't know, like I'm looking at a wall right now with neighbors that live on the other side of that wall. And there is a mystery there that is absolutely real and absolutely engaging. You know, that's got to be there. Like for us to be human beings existing in the world, there are things that we must not know, and there's limitations to how we see the world.
Meaning, I would love to see your take on what would an orcish map or an elven map look like. Meaning, what humanoids?
I've done that before, where you know the maps were written by goblins. That
I was starting to think. Meaning, okay, what an orc chieftain, what map would they do in order to impress their neighbors and their underlings on all their holdings and stuff?
You know, a goblin map or an orcish map is not a PC map because they're thinking about you as food. And that is a big wake-up call, you know? I think if something's intelligent, it doesn't mean that it's good. And to be honest with yourself, you have to realize that some things are not pretty.
And they're also maps, meaning we normally think of everything in geographical relationship to each other, meaning an X and Y map, and sometimes in 3D X, Y, and Z map. But if you go back to ancient maps, they often mapped rivers and roads and they put all the things along it, so to speak. So they didn't care about X and Y because it was a map how you follow a route, so to speak, or you go from A to B, and there was like this little linger.
linear maps. I mean, you can have a map that's a piece of wood with notches carved
exactly.
into it,
or you can
whalebone or whatever.
and I'm thinking about doing road guide maps for Greyhawk the same way and stuff that way. Yeah, because it's kind of cool because you can make it long. They will be kind of really cool. You can
there's a map of the New York subway system that sort of operates in that manner, and that it's not a straight literal visual translation of the structure, or you know, it's not like you're looking at a top-down one-to-one map of Manhattan, but it works because it orients you're oriented to the stops along the route, right? And I think that kind of map making, would be fascinating. I'd love if you were working on something like that.
I have
please
ideas
email me and show me
concept
what you come
ideas and stuff. Yeah, because it's like you only map what you can see from the road, so to speak. So you can kind of and kind of because I want to have maps, especially now when you start having new VTTs and stuff that are coming, where you can actually put whole worlds in there. Then I want to see cartography for that type of world presentation and stuff that you can have. So there's technology makes new ways of gaming possible, and I want to have like spin ideas and head spin for what maps can be used for our games in 10 years or 15 years and stuff. So those are ideas that I want to have for so you can kind of you get like an in-game map that is like a road, and then you see the terrain and you have to follow, and you can literally get lost, and you have to kind of refer to the map and figure out where to go, so to speak. Those were ideas that I was going to have.
I was thinking about how to build it. So a lot of times, you know, there's a difference between folks that think about geography or think about map making as, you know, an XY coordinate system or a relationship between a spatial relationship, which is what I often do. But I also often find myself thinking about visualizing spaces, landmarks, and there are a lot of folks that think about driving in terms of landmarks as opposed to a grid or whatever. But also, you know, there are maps of storytelling. There are storytelling maps in that I know about experiencing my world through the things that happened in it as I was living in that world, right? So my walks through Philadelphia during COVID, my wife and I spent a lot of time after dinner just going for walks through Center City, and we explored just about every street in Center City, Philadelphia, and loved finding little alleys that we'd never wandered down. But the things that I remember aren't necessarily the visual layout of the city, but the series of conversations and moments in time that we were experiencing those places. So how to develop that into something that
if you draw that experience, what would that be like, so to speak?
I think building
that's awesome.
Exploring that as a sort of a map in a linear narrative way, I think would be really fascinating.
So we know you can't talk about the map of all of it right now, but what I suggested that we need to have you back on the show after the Dungeon Master's Guide come out too.
I'd love to.
Because that way you can plug and you can show links and stuff to the site where they can hopefully go and download or buy a version of it and buy prints and stuff later on when
that'd be
after it comes out. Now
definitely.
Now I want to make sure we get some time, because I want to hear about your Epic Atlas project that you run on your Patreon.
Okay.
So the idea that I had was, what if
I'm going to post a link in chat here in a second.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
So what if you had a world that had the moon in geosynchronous position, or you had the moon that was fixed in space? You wouldn't necessarily need a compass, because you would always have a point to refer to
that
you could see, and you could tell where you were in the world in relation to that fixed, stable point.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to start off with a low fantasy world that was like the Middle Ages here in Earth. I mean, maybe somebody told stories about magical things that happened, but nobody really believed that magical things could happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Other than, you know, wives' tales or potential like hedge witches or, you know, very, very small, minor things. Now, in this world where it's very rational and everything's very logical, what if one day that thing that everybody referred to as, it's called the Tane or the mirror, because I think well, there's a relationship to that etymology, but what if one day the moon began to move? And the thing that everybody assumed was fixed and stable suddenly wasn't. And in conjunction with that, magic came back. And magic came back in a way that people couldn't immediately stomach or believe because they don't control it and it's terrifying. But the fact that they have to contend with it, I found compelling in that, you know, nobody in this world, like if you had told them that the moon could move, would have said, "Oh,
I was just gonna say that, Sam.
You're full of it, right?"
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if one day in this quiet little village, monsters show up and the moon starts to move, and everyone that thought that their world was nice and rational and safe suddenly had to contend with new neighbors coming into town that weren't human, but were as real and had their own motivations and their own lives and things that weren't, or that were magical, but were still motivated in the fact that, you know, you got to eat, you got to care for your children, you've got like, there are real worldly things that we have to deal with, whether we're living in a high fantasy world or a low fantasy world or a world that's, you know, completely normal. But the fact that things can change dramatically and result in a world that seems to be sort of, and I wrote this years before COVID, but basically when things go off the rails, what is it that you hold on to even in incredibly turbulent times? So the moon might be moving out of its orbit and, you know, monsters may be showing up at the gates. In that kind of a situation, what do you do and where do you where do you go from there? So the maps and the artwork and the storytelling that I'm presenting allows for like the Grodigers, which are giant frogs that just showed up one day outside of a little town called Terryville in the marshes. They're motivated by the fact that something happened and they were pushed into this new world, and they've got human beings that they have never seen, but like they've never seen humans, and humans have never seen giant frogs, but they're living in close proximity to one another all of a sudden, and there's a marshland that they both get food from. They don't know how to communicate with one another, but they've got to live with one another. And the key to that confrontation, or the key to that interaction, is if the players want it to be a fight, it's going to turn into a fight. If the players don't want it to turn into a fight, it might still turn into a fight, or it might not. But allowing the DM and the players to develop new storylines and new sort of cultural relationships by throwing things together that no one's ever experienced before, I think is absolutely fascinating and beautiful and potentially terrifying. And a reflection, which is what Tane means, on the world around us right now.
It's very,
I think if art and gaming can cause us to think about what's going on in the world away from our gaming tables, I think that's what the best science fiction back in the 50s and 60s tried to do. And I think that's what the Lord of the Rings tried to do. I don't know how big the Epic Atlas is going to get, but I would hope that it would be epic. And I hope that
I'm sure it is epic already. It's just that a lot of people haven't discovered it yet. But
The thing is, like, I'm working on a city map for the Epic Atlas right now, or this just 5 minutes before the interview. But I think that building a world that people could explore and play in and find a measure of joy sitting around a table with their friends, sharing a few hours on a Sunday night. That's, no matter where the story goes, I think that's beautiful. I think that the best times that I've had with my friends, sitting around my own dinner tables when, I make ribs and somebody brings some beer and
so
we can
have fun.
We're close to the same age. Sam Curtis brought up in chat the moon. Were you inspired by Thundar the Barbarian cartoon as a kid? Because
I watched a lot of Thundar Barbarian when I was
the very beginning, the comic goes by, breaks the moon, and
I mean,
cool.
I think big changes are big changes, and they can be epic in environmental scope, but we're still human beings, and how that plays out in really exciting times. I think it's fascinating. There's a Chinese curse that goes, "I hope you live in exciting times." Well, whether we know what's coming or not, I would hope that we would have
absolutely
a wonderful time sitting around the table with the people that we care about.
Friends, yep.
We go back 40 years, my group, and instead of the bar stories, most of the stories are, remember what happened here in 1987, and we went to a trip, and all that.
The amazing thing is that you can play the game session and you can remember what happened in the session like it was a real memory. And you can remember that decades afterwards. 100%. It's so much fun. And to me, it's like Greyhawk is a real place, but I've only been there in the imagination. But it's so cool that now I can interact with all of you guys and all the Greyhawk fans and stuff everywhere. And they've been there to that place too. And it's amazing. Read the stories and came up with their own version of it. And it's I just love it. It's fantastic.
So
when I mentioned my thesis piece, that was the blocks on the table, those little blocks that you can turn. So at my graduating show, I got my wife and I's dinner table with two chairs on either side of the table and set those blocks out. And the most beautiful thing the entire night, as my best friend and I are running around turning all these panels and replacing artwork on the walls, I'm looking over and I'm seeing 70-year-old, 80-year-old couples, friends, complete strangers, sitting down at a table playing with blocks together like kids and having a wonderful time. So that, to me, I mean,
you need to make dice set. You need to have a dice set and made so you can roll dice. Exactly.
I love gigantic dice.
Like an inch on the side, and then you can roll them on the table and then put them together, and you see what pattern comes up and stuff. So
So a couple. Let's see. For my current campaign, this is Dragon here. I redrew the map of Hamlet using Mike's style and Campaign Cartographer 3. That's cool. That's cool here.
I love seeing the maps that people wind up making with CC3 Plus.
So here are two questions. Are you too busy for existing commission work?
I have literally had to stop accepting commissions so I could focus on the Epic Atlas and Fate of the Norns and Pro Fantasy.
I imagine Fate of the Norns is going to be a Herculean.
Yeah, oh, it's a big long-term project.
Okay.
And Mike, you said it in the beginning. There are not that many cartographers. That's still true because I get proposals every month, and I turn them down. 99% of them I turn down because I feel I'm busy. And my advice is to a lot of people, publishers, you need to pay more to get more people
I
into the business.
absolutely agree. Because it's work.
Yes, exactly.
Takes a lot of time. And if you want something that's gonna last and something that folks are really going to be able to enjoy.
It's like I figure out, meaning my patrons pay me better than publishers do. So I simply say when they get because when they tell me, oh, can you do this for me? And I simply say, well, it will take me 6 months. You need to give me what my patrons will pay me for 6 months. They're not willing to do it. Then I simply say, well, then I do it for my patrons instead.
I think a lot of times it depends on the nature of the project, but I mean, you've got to like if you want somebody to put work in for you and put months of work in for you, just pay them. Jeez, like their landlord needs to be paid. So
but I also understand a lot of publishers. There isn't that much profit
in
the RPG industry, so it is tight, so
market.
to speak. So but there needs to be more. So if you want to get into doing something for the professionally for the industry, cartography is a sure bet because there is a shortage for cartographers. Lots of publishers reach out to me and
especially cartographers that have their own unique style. And that comes with practice. That comes with time, and the choices that you make, the way that the things that you like will show up in the work if you continue to do the work.
And especially setting maps and logic. When it comes to dungeon maps, I think there are so many tools now that is probably starting to fill up. When it comes to city maps, countries, whole worlds, that's where there is a shortage.
That's a question too. What about Greyhawk City map? Do we have that? Is that do you know? Was that you inside? Are they going to do a whole city?
I cannot speak about.
I can speak what I know because I have not under an NDA, so I can speak what I know. And there's been a Greyhawk map, city map, announced that will be on the other side of the Flanese map. Announced. That's what's been announced in the Dungeon Master's Guide. I don't know who's done it or so on, but that's what was in the announcement. The city of Greyhawk was going to be a base for your operations, so to speak, that you can explore the world.
I did not know that.
That was and then there was the Flanese map, so to speak. That's what is in the announcement, and I can talk about it because I haven't signed an NDA. I have no inside information whatsoever.
That's what Ed always says. I haven't signed an NDA, so I can say whatever I want. I'm like, okay, great, say whatever you want.
But I can't in this case because I don't know any inside information whatsoever. So
all right, cool.
I knew as much that there were going to be a project back in the day. That's as much as I knew. I knew they were going to do something, but that was it. And now when that something is being announced, they've already announced everything that I do know. So
we can skip past that. But a lot of people are excited about this. What date will you have on your site here, roughly? Greyhawk's World of Greyhawk map, and what's the highest? What's the highest resolution download size?
Hold on, I can.
A good guess is okay.
Oh, you don't. Yeah, we don't. But guess that first. It's It's announced to come out. What is it? October, November, or something like that?
So it comes. Okay, so I contractually I have to wait exactly 2 months
after
60 days after the publication date before I can release the artwork. So that's the hard and fast earliest. And that's typically I release on the day that I'm allowed to.
So there'll be some early next year, February or something like that. Maybe
I wish I could release it earlier, but I don't.
It's contract. That's the terms of.
That's what you got to do. if it's at 300 DPI, quick math,
200 meg.
I'm probably gonna release it so that you could print it at probably 8x12 or whatever the ratio is, but at least probably close to 3 times the size of the poster.
Okay,
8 foot by 12 foot.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's.
Will it come with a version without any labels on it, or that?
Yeah,
okay.
all my maps I release as a.
See, that's awesome.
Because folks fantastic. Live in other countries and need to.
Everyone happy with that? There you go. Okay,
good. You can throw it in Photoshop or whatever and put labels on it or something.
Yeah, and a lot of times, people are excited. As people like a lot of what folks do is they'll have the unlabeled version over top of the labeled version, and then reveal the labeled version as.
That's another wonderful,
beautiful.
That's great too.
Like that, I think Schultz from. Tomb of Annihilation. That was a really easy gameplay usage where you have, a literal grayed out area that you can kind of erase and show the map underneath as you're playing through exploring the peninsula.
Nice.
That's wonderful.
That's fantastic. Everyone got a lot of yes. That's what I'm looking for. Awesome, wonderful in chat. So that's one. That's fantastic.
Yep.
I remember this reminds me of I want to say back in 2014 when I first started releasing high-res versions of the artwork that I'd been making for D&D. At the time, it was like nobody had done it before, and it became such a really I've met a lot of cartographers that kind of began making maps. Like I'll go to conventions and guys like Tom Kartos will tell me, I can feed my family now because of what you've been doing since 2014. And that was probably the best compliment I could have ever received.
Wonderful.
I so many DMs. Like I used to go to Gen Con more frequently. I haven't been doing many conventions, just the ones in Philadelphia. But I remember DMs coming up and thanking me. Like the first year that I'd really started doing it. It was so popular because it gave folks a new way to interact with the artwork. Because previously it was just print versions in books, and you couldn't really use it in game.
Okay, Mike, I got a trivia question for you.
Yeah.
Name 3 people who are going to be VIP guests at Page next year.
Me.
Okay, name 2 others.
Oh crap.
No, it's not that difficult.
Okay, you name
me and Anna.
Yeah.
That was
both were going to be there.
Oh yeah, I was there at 1. I was one of the 20.
He was being facetious.
I was being facetious.
We have got to get a beer together.
Well, we'll be there Thursday night at the party and all that stuff, right? Absolutely. I mean, literally, I'm staying, but it's 40 minutes. I live in South Jersey still, right across the Commodore Barry.
And I will fly across the country to be there because it will be so much fun.
Yeah, we'll have a good time.
We moved out here to Omaha for my wife, she's an exhibitions manager at a large contemporary art center, so she puts on art shows. But I told her that I don't care what we're doing. I've got to get back to Philly and
there's a lot of great guests.
Now I'm looking forward to Page even more.
Absolutely. And like Chet Minton's a guest there, and a lot of people. And he has a smart. Actually, Ron Meissner's on next week. So
who runs it?
Absolutely.
Organize it.
So Mike, I know we've held you for 2 hours. I don't want to overdo it for you, but we really appreciate it. What is there anything else you'd like to shout out or
more
discuss?
shout outs,
or something in the Greyhawk map that is a
whatever,
tidbit
anything,
anything.
Any other project you want to plug?
Yeah, any other project, please.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So okay, so as far as projects, it's the Epic Atlas on Patreon.
I'll link to it again here. So yeah.
And could you help me pronounce Athcliath?
Athcliath.
Athcliath. Okay.
Athcliath. Yep. That's how it pronounced it, and I think it's right because it's like an Old North name, so to speak. My Old Norse is not perfect by any means, but at least I'm from that area of the world, and I've seen a lot of rune stones. I've listened to some of it, and I've actually couple of lectures by professors in Old Norse because I was kind of curious for gaming reasons. So yeah.
So those are two really exciting Patreon projects that I'm working on. Pro Fantasy, if you enjoy my work and you're not necessarily an artist yourself, you can build maps. So Pro Fantasy's got their CC3 Plus world map application, but I've got 3 separate add-ons that are for city building, dungeon building, and isometric city building.
I'm linking.
Please link that too.
I linked that site to.
And every month I'm producing new artwork. So follow me on Instagram and just search SCHLEY. Mike Schley. You'll find
Schley. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's don't. I'm on Twitter, X, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky.
Yeah, I'm linking your website there.
Instagram, Twitter.
There you have links to all your social media there too.
If you want high res digital artwork or high quality prints, I also have battle map posters. I've been turning all of my more recent book maps into printed battle map posters. Just go to prints.mikeschley.com, and because publishers oftentimes have very narrow margins and don't pay a lot, the website and the Patreon keeps the lights on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
If you can support, please do. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the only way. It's the only way I can afford to put the time into the work that I do.
Yep. It's you fans that keeps us going.
Yes,
absolutely.
I wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for all of you guys. 700 of you. Yep.
Anna's super excited because of that Greyhawk. She's like the people, and they're finding, we know there's going to be an influx of Greyhawk interest coming out.
Oh,
and that's why we're doing all these special things. We have our con in October, Virtual Con 5. We have a huge fundraiser for St. Jude's every February. Last year we raised $26,000. Every year it goes up and up and up. So with a bunch of streamers, we do a lot here to keep that rolling. We had like 50 people at GaryCon last year, and that's a question. GaryCon, Mike, have you been to previous ones, or
I haven't.
Go next year?
I haven't been, and I told my wife that I have got to start getting back into regular con attendance, either as guest or
GaryCon's the place.
Yeah,
that's the place to be.
I've run booths before. I don't really I love meeting people and I love chatting with gamers, and I'll sign stuff all day, but I hate sitting at the booth and acting like I'm there to sell something.
No, I should go just have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Alec Mona did last year.
I just wander around and say hi to folks.
And one thing that I want us to do at Page is that we should have a seminar talking about cartography.
It's simple. We'll get Ron. We'll get Ron to do it. We'll talk to Ron next week and say, Ron, we need this to happen.
I'm going to have my own.
Let me know where to be, and I will be there.
We should have a common seminar. You and me. We can just
absolutely.
Fantasy, cartography, general inspiration, whatever.
And if I'm free, I'll live stream it.
Yeah,
that's very cool. So, Mike, we're intertwined with GaryCon. I'll get them to contact you.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yeah,
We should,
give me a heads up, and
mhm.
I think I.
It's March next year.
What are the dates?
It's like the
again?
third weekend in March.
Yeah, I think it's
Third
March
weekend.
25th,
Oh, yeah, there's
something
that's
around there.
plenty of
March
leeway.
Yeah.
next. Yep.
Last year was 2 weekends for the 50th.
Oh yeah,
That was a little
next year
much.
it's like it's
I
4
burned
days.
out. Anna
Yeah.
burned out. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was 12 days of convention for me in a row.
One weekend's enough.
That's a
So
lot.
Yeah, that's a lot.
it was. But I'll get Josh Pop to contact you and go from there. And then
Please.
Luke.
Yeah,
Luke.
it's
Yeah.
4
No.
days of
No problem.
it's a 4-day convention. So and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of industry insiders as well as awesome gamers. So it's great.
Yeah. And the community's so welcoming here. I mean, everyone's cool. You know, it's just it's a really it's been built up over the last 6 years, and it's really rolling now. So right, Malden, someday Malden.
Oh yeah,
Malden's,
yes.
Oh my
Malden,
gosh,
please.
Malden, are you on the map, or did they take it off? Melcott, is Melcott on the map? That's Malden's custom location.
Oh yeah, and he also did
no, I don't see
Greyhawk.
it. No, it's not. It was on the whole. It was in the map for Living Girl Gazetteer.
And he also did one of the Greyhawk City map that was in the
Living Greyhawk Gazette Journal.
Journal. And
it's
stuff.
Malden.
Malden did the map for that one too.
Too small. Yeah. Okay, I just checked. So well, Mike, thanks a lot. This is awesome.
Yeah.
We'll definitely have you back in when that 60-day window comes, and we'll do the announcement. Come
whatever.
buy
After
this
the book
now.
comes
Yeah,
out,
well,
and when it's time
maybe even a
for you
little
to
earlier.
publish
We gotta keep in touch. We
Oh,
gotta keep in touch before then.
Definitely.
Are you a D&D? I mean, do you play a lot?
I haven't found a group here. So I love playing in person.
So do I.
You know, I make a lot of digital artwork, but the last thing I want to do after 8 to 12 hours a day staring at a screen is stare at a screen a little while longer.
That's true.
How about staring at a screen with a ton of terrain? And not play VTT. I mean, that's my style. Now, if you want to hop in on it, I'll get you in the game with Ed.
I can't commit right now, but
I
think
we're talking a one shot. Shot.
He will convince you at GaryCon or Page or something.
Oh yeah. Playing with Ed is like because Ed's a regular in my campaign. He plays every 2 to 3 months.
Yeah. You have to get Ed to convince you. Yeah.
If you email me and keep me on it, then
and if not, it's no big deal. But
Yeah, for a couple hours.
Get you with Todd Stashwick and Ed together. That'd be freaking hysterical.
Honestly, I think it would be a lot of fun.
Cool. I'm sure it will be. So it will be so much fun to have you. So thank you so much, Mike. This has been
you so much for
having me. Blast. It's been fantastic. Yeah.
All we're gonna do now is a couple quick shout outs, giveaway, and then we're gonna rate in the Darling Creep
Show. Yeah, I'll do my shout outs on Wednesday. So at Legends and Lore. So skip them for today. Yeah.
So feel free if you want to hang for another 3 to 5 minutes. If not, hey, it's cool. You know. So.
I heard my wife coming in, and I think she wants to go to dinner.
Go for it.
So then,
go for it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and we'll
then we do the shout
definitely be in touch.
Shout off here. So
thank you guys.
You have a great night.
Thank you.
Absolute ball.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Have a nice one.
Yeah.
All right, bye.
Bye. See here, I'll switch to the.
Mike's having trouble exiting here.
Wait, how do I exit?
You hover the mouse over.
There we go. Leave.
See ya. That was awesome. Look,
that was fantastic. Yeah,
we did not go into the weeds on Greyhawk because he obviously did not have the weeds answers.
No,
so,
and
okay.
I totally understand it because when you work on commissions, I can tell from my meeting. Often you do the mapping before they even write stuff, and you work under NDA, and there's a whole bunch of considerations like that. I've been in his seat when it comes to maps of Midgard, Cobalt Press, and stuff. I barely know the setting. I mapped it, and so on. So
So let me do this. I have to do this. I'm sorry, Anna, I have to. So if you don't know, and if I'm bragging too much, that's too effing bad.
No, you have to. You did an astonishing accomplishment yesterday. So
let's look at this. Josh Pop's going to say, don't get your head get to be big. I told Josh, I think I should finally be a VIP guest at GaryCon. All right, this is the weekend viewer hours watched for the D&D category. The highest I've ever been is 11th ever on like a full convention weekend or whatever. Let me say it's 15,000 hours watched over the weekend. Almost 250,000, 250,000 views from Thursday to Saturday.
Yep.
Okay, so 15,000 hours is about 50% of the normal hours I have watched in a year. Okay, so just note, thank you. It was awesome. I put out a thank you to everyone participating. I couldn't link everyone, but I put out the thanks to all those that were part of this. It's just insanity. Like, let me see if I got these here. Absolute insanity. This is, look at this, 128,000. This is Thursday night where I didn't. No, this is Friday and Saturday. So we were on the front page of Twitch until about 5 a.m. Saturday morning. So that's why it went down to 417. Oh, I'm sorry, but so that's the number 2 largest ever. And then Thursday night was nuts. Because we didn't even expect to be on Thursday night. But look, another 105,000. A viewer average of 895. It was insane. Yeah. Exactly, Dennis. It's like, it was crazy. So I'll say personally, Anna, the 24-hour historical scenario, Hateful Words, was a success. Tommy John Kelly came on the first hour.
I think this should be one of the yearly recurring things. You should do this once a year, like you do the other stuff,
okay.
the fundraiser and virtual Greyhawk on this.
Once a year, I think I can do.
Yeah, once a year you should do the stuff once a year. I think it will be cool to have a yearly thing like this. Once a year you should do something, and we should prep. Next time we should prep with more talk shows in between.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So yeah.
Curtis and Greyhawk Mike and
add an hour every year.
Yes. God, and Patrick, they came on after the first game, which ended around 1:30. Mike dodged after about an hour and a half. Patrick and Carl and Curtis stayed on, and about 4:30, Carlos Lysing came on in the middle of the night because Yoav was talking to him, and then so Curtis contacted him. He hopped on for about 45 minutes. So I got through that. The roughest point was 5:30 in the morning. I think
that's roughly when I came.
Yeah,
in.
right.
You and Tim was sitting there.
And it's just Tim and me, and that's when I'm like, I gotta play some vids. And then Tim orders DoorDash. Tim is the DoorDash expert. Like he's like the guru of DoorDash. So and then then once we got to the game of them logging into the game 2, then I was able to get through. But at that third game, you all saw me. I couldn't even add. And I told us, I was at a point where I was estimating what the damage pluses were. Because I couldn't add them all up for like Curtis's and Brett's characters. I'm just saying it's plus 24. So yeah. Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate all the lurks because we barely got under at those ends 170, 180, which is like high point ever. So, yeah. Well, I think it was 15, Troy. But Tim went to bed for 2.5 hours. I got 0 sleep. So I get a nice comment from Lord Forth on the all the they're all uploaded to YouTube. YouTube broke it into 3 parts. By the way, it was so big. I didn't, it just happened. And he's like, "Great job, AF." Right. And I can't wait till you do the next 24-hour one. I'm like, well, you're going to have to wait, dude. Number 1, my wife will kill me. 2, I'm feeling it still. Last night was not a good sleep night for me with cramping, leg cramping, everything.
It takes a while to recover from it.
There you are, dude. Thank you for the kind words. But you're going to have to wait. So, but this was so much fun. The prep work was crazy. I created 20-some new characters from scratch. And you know how anal I am. Portrait, background, had to make sense, had to fit all the people in the proper games, all of them. I had to slot everyone, figure out if I had enough people, get the stories done, get the terrain set up, get the terrain changed. I mean, it was like a lot. And so, of course, I brought it on myself doing it. So just note, I had a blast. Twitch, the Twitch partner request for front page time is awesome. I gave them a good idea and they accepted it right away. I can't do it for another 90 days, even submit. So, because, but hey, it was wonderful. So thank you very much to everyone. We'll keep it going. So now I got to concentrate on getting Virtual GrowCon people out because we're a little slow on events and registrations. So that's where I want our, that's the wrong button. Shit. I want people to start signing up, please. I need people to start registering. I need people to start putting in events. Ron Meissner is going to help us advertise it as well. I made a deal with him. Okay, so deal for deal. So here's what's going on. Normal, it's 4 streams again this week.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Good guys, good and gals of Greyhawk. It'll be on Wednesday night. It was Les Oblivion Seeker's idea, and it'll be myself, Anna, and Les at minimum. Maybe Greyhawk Mike, maybe Alan Growy. So we'll talk about the, all the good guys.
That's good. Because we talked so much about villains.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Good.
That'll be a good discussion.
Yeah.
Don't have the banners done for Thursday night, but 3 of my guys are all on vacation. 2 are on vacation, and Bill's getting a major surgery. So I only have Walt. So it's back to nuclear meat. I already have Korg. I already have Coco for Thursday. So I know it's Justinius' favorite group. So we're gonna have at least 2 of them on Thursday night. That'll be the game Thursday. Saturday is Tim's DMing for me, Coco, and his daughter, and Patrick. We continue that Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Death Comes Quickly. There you go. That'll be fun.
Yep.
Next Sunday is also Rob Meissner will be on from Page for Gabbin. All right.
Good. Yeah.
All right.
I can put in a link here to my latest Patreon post when I'm thanking 700 all of you for helping me keep doing this, just like Mike Schley said, that keeps the lights going and the computers running and stuff here. So it's 5 years since I launched my Patreon properly, and now I have 700 of you helping me out doing it. So it's fantastic. So it's also an update on what I'm working on for this year, and a little bit sneak peek into future projects. So, and it's the first kind of the working title for my rule set is Hawk Tales Fantasy Roleplay. So I have to.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so we'll see if that sticks. It's the working name. We'll see if it ends up being called that at the end, so to speak. And it's something I've been working on for almost 5 years to some degree. And it's not going to be something in print. I don't think it will be a huge success or anything. It's just that I needed a rule system for my own games. So it's definitely based on D&D. It's based on the 5e SRD and the advanced 5e from Level Up EN Publishing. So those 2 SRDs are the ones that I'm referring to, so to speak. But it's very much its own beast. It's semi 5e compatible, so to speak. So it's I've slaughtered a few holy cows in D&D, so to speak. But there will be I will present that in depth later on, so to speak, and it will get its own website and stuff eventually. And it will be a Creative Commons given away for free. So it's not something I'm doing to earn money on, but we will see. So that's the idea. But there's some other tidbits and stuff we can talk more about on Wednesday and on Friday, because there will be a mapping stream next Friday as well.
So winner of the giveaway gets a choice of 2. Okay. One reference, one adventure. I do have a couple cities of Greyhawk here still. I still have the World of Greyhawk. I have the Folio. Yeah, I got a lot of cool things here. I think I have a. Do I have another? I know Marklands was done. Daniel Boggs took the Marklands from the weekend. What's this? Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Now I do have a Scarlet Brother there still too, so I got some good stuff here. So yep. And also the support during the streams for cheering and gift subs and all was insane. I think we had 8 hype trains, which is nuts. So thanks, really, thank you. Hey Walt will be the only Colby will be the only one probably playing with nuclear meat from the regulars, just like Bill did a couple weeks ago. So. Yep, on this week. So Mark Lems is awesome, and Geek Dice, I think he did about 10, so I appreciate it. It was awesome. We had a great time, and let's rock and roll here. All right, I'm going to set this up. Let's see who wins this. Last call, extreme point drawing. Whew. And by the way, also, Chuck, Controller Games, was so impressed by everything. Quick story. He was going to go... I said to him, can you give me 2 $25 gift certificates for a special event? He's like, no problem. So then he comes on, logs on, getting ready to play. And he says, read your Discord. And I'm like, what? This is like right before we're about to start. And he goes, and we had 9 giveaways from him instead of 2. Yeah, it was crazy. Crazy. So it was really, really impressed by everything. So I was like, cool. All right. Once again, my brain is not working very well. So Dr. Faust.
Yeah. Welcome.
Dr. Faust. We're just finishing up too. Yeah, it's great to see you, man. Great to see you. Thanks a lot for coming in. We were just talking, and we have Mike Schley on. Yeah. So I'm going to close out the drawing shortly. We're doing a drawing giveaway. What am I doing here? Thank you. It's whoops, wrong emotes. You don't want to put the no just no emote up there. Yeah. So hope you're great. Hope you're doing well. But sit tight, please, because we're going into the Darling Creep Show, and she's got a great stream. This is going to be a great game because Little Bones is DMing, so it's cool. Yeah, Darling is harmless, mostly harmless. How many of you? We'll let them sit in for a second here. How many of you were proud of me for TPKing them all on the first game? Now, there was a Butch and Sundance moment for a couple of them, like Ed's, and because they're getting overrun, and that was just they knew it was over, and they were going to fight to the death. But I thought there were some really graphically disgusting deaths for those elves, in particular Bones' character and Tim's Jana, and Bird's Lordina. They were pretty graphic deaths. So yeah, but it was historical, so it did happen in real life. She held my dragon over the dog pit so she did. But it was cool. And Dr. Faust, it's great to see you. Oh, yeah, that's right. And Chad was there, too. I apologize, Chad. See, my brain's working. Chad drove down, Van Wickman, he drove down up from Maryland to here to hang out with Tim and me in the morning all the way through till about an hour or two after we were done. He watched me fall asleep on the couch. So, right, and that was like, then he drove home. So, yeah, it was cool. It's good to see you. So, yeah, no, that was thank you for that, too, man. There's too many people to thank. So. You lose to 2 PKs with that. Yep. All right, so here we go. Last call. Exclamation point drawing. 10 seconds. I'll close it out. See who wins. 2 double giveaway, so winner gets 2. Then we're rating the Darling Creep Show. And Mike Schley was a great guest. That was fantastic. It was very casual. I love the discussion points.
Yeah.
We went boom, boom. Yeah, it was really a good show. So, yeah. I gotta talk to someone at Twitch about the ads and what they want me to do. So, yeah. Jacko, yes, but I told by game 3, all the adding up of all the damage, I was making it up. I was estimating. I was just like, oh, let's see, he hit 3 times.
Sometimes you just estimate.
Two of the primaries, 1 secondary, and not a second secondary, and I'm like, oh, it's 24.
So that's why I put averages in my stat blocks, because that way I can just
too.
If I don't want to calculate or roll dice, I can just use the averages and go up and down just a little bit to weed out the
all right, here we go. I'm gonna close this out. I forget what I'm doing. Hold on. Giveaways. Close entries. Winner has to be on the claim. Pick winner. Hager. Hager the Horrible.
Awesome.
See, make sure Hager's on to say claim. Let me make sure Hager's in chat at minimum. Hager is not on. I don't think. Uh-oh. He's not on. I don't see him in chat.
He might have left.
If he departed and didn't even lurk, I gotta go with someone else. All right? I'll give him 10 seconds. I don't see him on. He's not in chat. His name's not in chat log either. So I think I think I'm gonna have to pick another one. That's horrible. That's funny. Hey, it's good for you guys. Here we go. Next winner. The winner is Dave, DM221532.
Awesome.
Dave's on. And Dave is also a VIP old school high-end subscriber. So he's lurking. He can lurk all he wants.
All the time.
Yep, he's in. He won. He's in chat. I see him in the log. So awesome. I'll get with Dave. Dave S. last name or something. All right. I know what it is. I just don't want to share it. So let's rock and roll in the Darling Creep Show.
Yeah.
All right. Anna, thanks. See you Wednesday night for a great discussion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Keep the faith, everyone. We're going to have some fun time with Greyhawk. We're going to get an influx of a lot of new viewers, so we got to stay on top of it and do the right things. And I need your assistance for Virtual GreyhawkCon 5. I need you, the word out. Sign up. It's $5 plus a couple. You just got to have extra dollars for the fees. You need to have a credit card, though. They don't take PayPal. It's got to be a credit card. And then lastly, sign up for events, create events. Okay? All right. We'll talk to you soon. Wrong button's coming. Everyone. See you. Good night. I'm going to bed early tonight.
I bet. Yeah. I'm going to bed early too. So, yeah.
Oh, boom. 108. Oh, 110. Awesome. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See you Wednesday.
Bye. 110. Good number.
Yeah.